get off the ice and make a change. Like the third goal that the Flames give up is like it's horrendous uh, coverage. It's anyways, it's quite puzzling. So yeah, that's all.
I was just looking for that Backlund back check clip to see if I could show it. I know I have a replay here, but um, hey, Bobby Joe, are you doing any coaching these days?
I'm not currently doing any. I do teach at Chestermere High School, and I kind of facilitate the hockey performance programs, so grade 10, 11, and 12. So I had my first girl this year in the time I've had a couple mat leaves in the middle of my stint at Chestermere, but my first girl this year, and she's a go-getter, that's for sure. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it was a tough year, I think with everything that COVID brings, having the kids on the ice, then having them not on the ice, and it's been a kind of a struggle for the students and for the kids. But yeah, it's in a normal year. I found that not this year, but last year I really felt that I don't know, I just felt things were coming a lot easier. I was able to think a little bit differently. I think just the detail and just sort of the specializing of different drills and different skills and that sort of thing. I think all of a sudden really started to come to me. And so this year was disappointing that we kind of had people on the ice, and then we had to take some breaks with COVID, and now obviously none of that is happening for the kids, and so it's tough. I know. And speaking with my family back in Saskatchewan, they're starting with hockey, just small groups, and I said, as much as people are disappointed, what a year to work on skill development and to really watch the video and do some of that, and watch some hockey on TV and that sort of thing. So as much as it's not a year where a whole lot of games are happening for everybody, I think it's a year to really, I think, work on a lot of skill development. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I would love to get back to, I think, coaching. And my kids are now, my girls are 4.5 and 2.5, so 5 and 3 this summer. So soon enough, I'll probably be starting to coach them. Hopefully, we've been getting them on the ice and skating, and I just absolutely love it. My oldest I think she's found a passion for skating, so I'm excited. It makes me excited.
Mm, great.
Yeah, yeah. But
Bobby
it
Joe,
was nice to kind of take a break and sort of do that sort of thing, and then find your passion again, kind of thing. Sorry, I'm rambly.
Bobby Joe, it's Kim. My daughters are the same age, so
Oh, awesome! It's fun, eh?
it is fun. They're actually out on the outdoor rink right now with my husband.
Oh,
But the
that's awesome.
the 4 year old is I think Wally saw the video of her. She's
I did.
speed, like she'll just crash. She loves it. She goes a million miles an hour. But I keep asking her. We've been watching all the Toronto Six games,
Yeah.
and she watches with me. And I asked her last night, "Do you want to be a hockey player?" She says, "No, mommy, I want to be a hairdresser." And I said, "Well, you can be a hockey player until you're a hairdresser." What a
Yeah, exactly.
waste! The reckless abandon that she has. That's exciting, as we know with the girls, right? It's usually stand here, do this, and she just
Yeah.
wants to go out and create chaos. And the younger one is only goes on the ice to punch people. She
Yeah.
puts gloves on to punch, so she's a little more like me. She's gonna score a goal and only box. So
She's
Your
born.
daughters sound exactly like mine. My youngest is the kind of the fiery one that's, yeah, she can take care of herself. She's not too
Mhm.
worried about anybody else. So, but my
Exactly.
youngest is a little more timid, but yeah, it's fun to see, and the progression that even just, over the holidays when I'm a teacher, so obviously we had that little Christmas break there, and it was neat over the holidays, that progression, just even every day, just
Mm.
doing different things, and yeah, it's crazy what those kids are sponges. So
Yeah.
it's good to
I,
see. I know when you guys were talking about Daryl, I had a short stint with him when I was with the national team. I know he was at a few camps, and I think you're completely right, Wally, and Tim. His way of thinking is it's almost. I found it almost overwhelming. Like, it was hard to understand completely because he was so detailed that, even the smallest thing, I was finding it was hard to absorb all of it in that short period of time. And you wanted to. Just like, every coach brings something. I think he has a different way to think, and that's it's just so specialized and so unique that it is kind of hard to understand. So, when you talk about your NHL players that are all-stars, they're looking at him with that, just intensity. I think I can speak with my own experience in that, there's so much that he has to give, and many do, but his way of thinking is just so different. I would
I
agree with that.
I thought he would be better with females. So I
Well,
guess
I think that we overanalyze everything, Wally. I think females do. I think every single thing we would probably well, I was that player. I definitely overanalyzed all the time. But maybe
Okay.
that's what it is that, the males can just take it with maybe a grain of salt and then be able to use that, application. And then for us, I think we are just such thinkers that we maybe overcommit or overthink. That's my thought, because that's just personally experiencing that. I felt, I think I only had him a couple sessions, and it was some of the things that he was saying were different than what you had learned and what you had just grown up knowing. And so it was sort of like, do I actually trust in this? So I
Yeah.
think over a period of time, like with Toronto, working with him, I think you're going to see those guys are on the ice every day, and the amount of detail, the amount of video, and, the amount of commitment that they would have. I think with that I don't think it's comparable, but I don't know. I think we do overanalyze.
I would agree with you, Bobby Joe, that like his very detailed approach. I think maybe that's what guys like Crosby and Patrick Kane and Tavares, guys like that who work with him, that's what they get out of it. Like, they're already tremendous players, obviously, and really skilled, and they're just looking for some little edge to get a little bit better. And I think that's one of his main attractions. He's got a different way of thinking and looking at the game, and he explains, his concepts, I thought, really well, and they intuitively made a lot of sense to me. I've been in the game for 50 years, and some of the things he said were like, oh, yeah, that is what's happening right there. And why has nobody really explained that before? So my second thought is, in terms of the males and the females, because just for you, I told Wally the story on email yesterday. At the Penticton camp in 2013, he was there. He and I were there for about 10 days, and and along with Mark, Mark doing the skating, and we were doing skill stuff with him. And he had a real hard time with MP. She was really resistant, and he was really frustrated by her. I can remember like it was yesterday, talking to him after one ice session. He's like, man, she I might have even used these words like she just won't let go and try something. Like she's got the wall up and she won't let me in. And I kind of don't remember the end result of all that. But I wondered if, and again, this is a global observation, but it comes back to that confidence code book. Did you read that, by the way, Kim, by any chance?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, it comes back to that where, there's a feeling that generally, that females have a lower level of self-confidence or more concerned with self-esteem. And I wonder if that kind of gets in the way of them allowing themselves to fail and, look bad when a guy like Daryl's trying to get them to stretch themselves a little bit. So I wonder if that's a bit of a roadblock. And of course, it wouldn't be universally true, but I just wonder if it's one of the things that's sort of operating underneath.
But I think it's a question of environment. Tim, like if he's at Hockey Canada camp, like I've only been to a few of them, you're not, Bobby Joe's been to a ton of them. You're not like, oh, let me try this thing that I'm going to follow my fail. Even if they say, oh, it's okay and make mistakes, there is no way. Maybe MP is the one. Maybe there's two of them Like I would argue, I don't know if Daryl does this at a Leafs practice, but I guarantee you, like Matthews and Tavares are like, yeah, no problem, we know Daryl, and the guy who's sitting on the fourth line is like, am I going to do that and screw it up in a game and get sent back down to the A? Like, I think I think there's an opportunity here in the female game, like to bring. I agree, you want to teach to the top, but I agree with Wally. This is very good stuff for the female game because I've been watching the Toronto Six and I've been watching the NWHL games. And the amount of shots that are taken from the outside, no one's cutting to the middle. Like it's a very relatively safe style of hockey, very north-south. And I'm watching these one-on-one situations and going, a little, jab step, cut to the middle, shoot on, the goalies, like always in women's hockey, are more talented than the players, like on a relative basis. But they're not, they're just the amount of shots I saw. Toronto outshot Buffalo last night. I think Toronto had almost 50 shots. But the number of them that were taken from the outside and the level of individual skill that those Toronto players have, like they should be doing the stuff that, we're watching, the Matthews and the Tavares and the Marner doing. Like that's a safe environment for them to do it. And even them, they're not doing it against, Buffalo's not a very strong team. So I think Daryl's stuff definitely, I bet you if he's with MP at a, maybe not $1,000 session, but, at a private session, or maybe he's got, 3 of the, leading scorers in the women's game all together, he's probably having a way stronger effect on them versus trying to teach to all 25 people at a camp.
But it was an individual thing. He was with her one-on-one.
Okay.
One-on-one, partly because he saw her frustrated. We were working in small groups, like, it could have been all the forwards or half of the forwards one day or something like that in small groups. But I think he saw the frustration. He just wasn't getting what he was trying to teach. And it was, I'm not going to say a simple thing, but a relatively simple thing. Coming off the circle and keeping your feet moving as you're shooting. He saw her frustration. So at the end of practice, he obviously knows, hey, I got to get through to this one. Otherwise, everything could fall down. And even after working with her for 15 minutes after, and I was watching him from afar, like you could just see the wall up that she had. Like just, I want to get out of here. I don't want to be doing this. Completely different mindset than, than a lot of the guys we've been talking about. And she obviously she's like the Sidney Crosby of the female game. Tremendous player, tremendous person, wants to win as much as anybody. I think you guys can both attest to that. So it's just an interesting thing that she couldn't just let go and give into the process of trying to learn something new. And maybe, I don't know, maybe she did get over it. Like I was there for 10 days, I think. And anyway, it was just it was very interesting.
Tim, he talks about that with male athletes. He discovers as he's trying to experiment with them, and they find this barrier of what they can't do. That's when he's able to read. He wants to find that. He calls it the necessary point of failure. So they want to get better. And that barrier, and that's why he was frustrated. He feels that the elite athlete, they don't fail too much in drills, but when they do, being able to regress with them and get them engaged and trying it and then going back and doing it and having success, I think that's sort of the art of what he's able to do with and win the favor of the elite player. And in his experience, the elite players want to get better, so they appreciate not being not being able to do something. He said they're so driven to win, but they're so driven to improvement that and only can you help them individually. Like it's a one-on-one degree of communication that's beyond anything I've ever seen. And Dominic, when I read his book, I think of you so much and the players you've worked with, and being a skills coach with the Flames, and now on the bench coaching. The role of a guy like Daryl as a skills coach, and I'm just on the pages now where he doesn't get into coaches and the coaches doing this or that. It's all about what he does for them to do whatever the coach wants. The nuances of the breaking down a skill and breaking down in not our fundamental way, like, more knee bend or this edge here or that edge there. It's just a higher degree of taking it to a tactical performance level. So it's just really good stuff. And Bobby Joe, I'd love to. We'll get Daryl on sometime, I'm sure, in the future. And when I look at the picture of the 3 national players in his book, and the pictures of the NHL players in his book, and the body language, you're exactly right. So there's a new thing to discover dealing with elite female athletes and wanting to be pointed out, and it's really interesting. It's all good stuff. So welcome, Dominic. Are you in hibernation in Calgary now with your Stockton team?
I am. Yeah. I think on Saturday we get our second test, and then at that point we're able to get out of quarantine. But for now, we're just doing what we can in here. I mean, there's some new teams that we have to pre-scout, and the rosters are expanded, so it's till nauseum, like trying to figure out who's playing where, because there's junior kids that can now play, and because the Western League is, maybe they're playing, maybe they're not, Ontario and everything else. So yeah, we're keeping busy doing make work projects.
So Dom, kind of glad you're on. I'm gonna screen. Well, maybe you maybe remember Simmons. We were talking about the back check on Simmons. One of Simmons' goals on I think it was the second game. Backlund.
Yeah.
Like what's your sort of 2 cents on that? I mean, I can show for everybody maybe before. I'll try to screen share and show everybody else. Just so they have a look at it. I've got the replay here. I can't find the original one, but like the live goal. But so I'll just share this now, and if I can. It's not looking. Is that? Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just see if I can let it go here. See if it'll play.
Before that, and you look at the Leafs, how they exit the zone, and with speed, I might add. This is a quick way to get up the ice, and you can see Simmons is working awfully hard to get in position. That shot, by the way, did score a rebound, and Simmons gets a second opportunity. But that was just a really smart shot, far post from the ball, and Markstrom kicks it out right where you would expect it.
So
Jerky on our end, Tim.
sorry.
It's jerky on our end. I couldn't read the back check there.
Okay, I'll maybe try to play it one more time, and it wasn't too bad playing for me here. We talked about that last week, but
I remember the play. I remember
can you
thinking
guys see
about it.
that now? Can you guys see that or no?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so I'll get to so we can break it down. So there's Backlund in the middle of the ice. Okay. He's coming. So there'd be two sort of questions here, I guess, Dom, is or three maybe, sort of what would sort of the Flames coaching feedback be in this situation? What do you want Backlund to do versus, what's he capable of doing in this situation? So he's back checking there.
Yeah. So
Glances,
he
glances
makes
there.
yeah he makes a late read there. So basically once that puck's kicked out, then the D are going to slide, and then the forward have got to go to the weak side, and it happens quick. I mean, they kick it out wide, and then um, they kick that out wide, and then it ends up being shot rebound, and he ends up beating him to his spot. But um, that's that line rush against is they've had multiple different tweaks over the last couple of years, but basically that winger, those two D, so the inside D is going to take that driver, and then the forward is responsible for anything coming back across. So I mean, again, it's it's I guess it's easy to look at it and say, hey, if he kept his feet going and went to the guy, but it happens so quick. It's just a little bit. I mean, it's from my perspective, it's tough because he's watching where the puck is and understanding. Okay, that D's got that guy back, and then literally as he looks over, he's that moment where he stopped his feet, loses body position on Simmonds for it to go to the other side. But that would be the messaging that we would have for that clip.
Guys, I would like to see how they got out of the zone and what happened to everybody when to understand why that awkward scenario occurred at the Flames blue line. To me, just looking at the rush, I see 2D too close together in the middle. And it's just hard to sort out. Like we say on backcheck, sort it out. There's just no time to sort it out. And it was just one of those scenarios that occurred. Maybe the spacing and numbers, the problem occurred in the width and depth defensively on the transition when they came the other way. I don't know, but it was a good clip to learn from. And Tim, the way you expressed it back, at the beginning, and I don't know if you could say what you went through your mind about Backlund. That made sense to me. And I'm talking like on a superficial level, like Darryl Belfry would be thinking, I'd like to get his take, but he's not a coach. But he'd be thinking about Backlund's commitment to back check. And now the decision making, this is sort of one of those lines. So there's the numbers. Where are the other Reds? 2 below the goal line with 1D.
For me, it's a simple, really. I mean, Morris communicated it pretty well. Number one, there's not enough. There's no communication between the D and the forwards. And if you look at this, if I scroll through this, you can actually see that I think Nesterov comes off the bench. So Backlund sort of gets bumped with Simmonds there. Valimaki is there. See, there's Nesterov. I think he's coming off the bench. So he's a little late joining. And so, yeah, the D are pretty tight together. But the puck is in the inside, and now it gets moved. But if Backlund just commits fully to back checking there, makes a decision and commits fully to back checking, probably Simmonds doesn't score that goal. Like he glides for about 1,000, 2,000. And Dom, there's another clip of Monahan in the first Toronto game. It's exactly the same. He's got defensive side just inside the offensive blue line, and there's just a lack of commitment on his part to actually go all the way back. He back checks, but he stops right about where Backlund stops right here, skating. And, why would Backlund stop skating? It's a 3-on-2 here. These D are gonna need help somewhere, and he needs to either commit one way or the other, and he doesn't, and he just stops skating, and that's and the result is the result.
The 3 words Morris said, this is for Dom's sake. 3 C's, Morris. Commitment, communication, commitment, and certainty. And using those three words, talking about Backlund, there was uncertainty, and commitment would be to keep the feet moving and come back harder, so he could have prevented that or in some way influenced it. But just for coaches, the three words are the three C's. I'm curious about, Belfry does not focus on defensive scenarios like we are.
No.
But we're looking at the defensive side of things, and I'm curious, Bobby Joe and Kim, the degree of detail that Tim and Morris are bringing up on the defensive side of the game. Like we're in the female game, Belfry's stuff, the offensive side of the game, I think they can grasp and they're ready to absorb, apply, and buy into. But this defensive side, even at the NHL level, I think the offensive game, focus on it, Belfry's kind of work overrides the defensive thought process and coaching. So that's lacking in the NHL, Dominic. When I go back, to you and saying the D need to work on special skating skills because they can't play rushes, and I'm looking at number 6's feet crossing, Valimaki, it all adds up in the end. The fundamentals of how you skate the game, determine your location, and being in spots to play situations. Nobody in the NHL spends time on that or talks about it. They're all crossing their feet to get to the middle lane, where the C cut to get to the middle or C cut to get to the outside. You don't cross your feet. Those are fundamental defensive tactical skating skills. But at the NHL level, they don't really think in that way. We're thinking offensive execution, and that's what Daryl's thinking.
I'm going to defend Valimaki there, Wally, because if I'm Valimaki, and I actually wore number 6 in St. Louis a little bit, so I can empathize. He's trying to force the puck to the outside. That's why he comes to the middle. That's where you want the puck, on the outside. And, for me, that's detail. But for Backlund, if Backlund would have just committed to fully back checking all the way back, and honestly, I really like Backlund as a player myself. He seems like he's in a funk this year, but if he fully commits to back checking, they don't score this goal. It's a perfect pad pass, which we know all teams get taught to use. But that's not detail. That's just a basic commitment to defensive hockey. It's one of the first things we focused on, like with the Danish girls, is when you're back checking, especially in an odd situation like this, you are never too late to come back. Like, don't ever think, oh, the play's going to happen, they don't need me. You're never too late to pick up a stick. And we show them, a real nice little video I have from the national team. But if he'd have just kept coming here, he would have probably got his stick on Simmons, and maybe they score anyway, but he certainly could have disrupted the scoring chance to some level. And it's that simple for me.
I totally agree with you.
But the crossovers have nothing to do with it. He's protecting the middle of the ice.
No, I'm just referring to them in other cases. I'm not referring to that influencing this so much. I'm just saying, generally speaking, the habit of the crossover will influence you during the game in other situations. I'm talking about Dominic, the coaching staff, the player looking at this clip and saying, geez, I shouldn't have coasted. If he says that and sees it, he understands it. And how do you do that?
Screen shares.
So that you don't lose them, like maybe Daryl lost some of the female players trying to get to that detail with them. That's where I'm coming from on this. Not that situation, but if you're going to coach at any level, it's an art of. That's a great clip, boy. I'd have the players the defense talk about that, the whole team talk about that and learn from it. Not, oh, geez, we lost the game and you should have done this or you should have done that. And they might come to the realization without embarrassment, boy, we can't talk.
Timmy,
I don't know, but I'm just saying as a coach, that's what's
Timmy. Hello.
Go ahead, Alan.
Just looking at that defensive situation from the way it was a minute ago, that right D took himself too far to the right on the crossover, and he should have been thinking 2-on-1 when he saw, the what was happening in the center, because he left that winger wide, too wide, and but I'm just looking at that picture there. Maybe it's not the way it was, but when I see the two defensemen close together and a winger wide with a possibility of a pass and going right in, but that crossover took him too close to the other D man and left too much width on the side.
So, and again, if we talk about it from the offensive side, this is a really good example of why you want to attack between the dots versus attacking with the puck wide, because it makes it tough on the D to decide how are we going to defend this, who's going to take the puck if the puck's coming right down the middle. Am I stepping up? Is my partner stepping up? And but I think generally the D are protecting the middle of the ice here, and if you're looking at quality scoring chances, where you want the puck is outside the dots, and that's where it is right now. They forced the puck outside the dots. They gave up a 1% scoring chance on this shot, notwithstanding the pad pass. So, and actually I've got another clip, Dom, that would be interesting to compare to. It's exactly the same situation that led to, I think, the winning goal. And I'll show you that. Just
Could I add on this just one last thing on this clip? That last clip. Can you leave that clip up there for me? So can you go back? And I just noticed this. Can you go back a little bit? Just right when they're coming, right when Nesterov, back a little more. Okay, watch Nesterov. He's pointing to Backlund to take the wide winger.
I can't see that because your little picture frame. Maybe I can use your.
Right
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He points with his stick to take a wide man.
Yeah, he's pointing like as he comes on here.
Okay.
Right here,
Yeah, I see that now. Yeah.
He's pointing over at Simmons to take that guy. So I think it's just Backlund just not, again. This is 100% all on Backlund, and I know the way that they're coaching Nesterov to take that middle lane driver, to be able to say, and so he's pointing to him, and he's doing a good job. I didn't notice that before. Like Backlund should have gone right away and trust that his D will be able to, and I'm not sure he's a little puck focused, I guess, if you will, but if he's able to go immediately right to Simmons and like you mentioned, like would have kept the stride, and you could see his body language after this went in, he was like, yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's a great pickup. And when I show you the next clip, one of the things we talked about before you came on was in watching some video of practice. I'm not sure exactly when it was that Tom, I think it was right at the end of the Peters. I think Bill was still there, but they were basically practicing their back checking. And when you're in the middle of the ice or puck side, they basically had their back checking forward track the puck all the way back, and the D would shift over. And that's what I'm wondering if Backlund is thinking right here. He's trying to track the puck and wondering, should I go to that puck side versus go to the wide guy? Because if you look at this clip, and it's again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But so here's the game-winning goal. And for me on this clip, Bennett is back checking here. And I'll just scroll through it. And you can see they do get organized here, but they ended up, just to finish the clip really carefully, they got Ozone possession, comes around, and Marner scores the game winner right there in a one-timer. But in this situation, this is why I don't like the forward backtracking on the puck all the way back, because it ends up, the D is in the best position to defend the puck now coming down the wide lane. The D's in the best position to defend there. If Bennett just picks up Matthews, what's going to happen? Like nothing. But instead, the forward tracks back, and they give Matthews all this time and space to get the puck. And that's the biggest problem for me, because being a defenseman, I used to see this all the time. It's like, let me take that puck carrier. You get the trailer. I can't get the trailer. He's too far away. So that's, and again, talking a lot of details here, but if you have a philosophy of backtracking and tracking the puck, this is going to happen a lot, where the trailer is going to have time and space with the puck. So anyway.
Tim,
Yeah.
my point here, and Dom too, communication.
Yeah,
Coach,
exactly.
The coach generally provides a framework or a theory, but it's more important that the players, with all the nuances, and Belfry uses that word in his book, every shift is different. The space, the spatial awareness, the situational awareness, the decision making is different. Coaches don't have time to think about those scenarios. The players are experiencing them as they happen every shift. And that's why players have to look at this in a non-threatening way and sort it out themselves. The coaches never will, to this degree, take this much time to look at those two clips. The video guy might, but
They do, Wally. Trust me, they do. They'll go through those two clips. I'll bet my contract on it that they'll be going through and be saying, like, you can see when I think it's Gio that's back there, like Sammy's coming back, and you can see there's this decision where he's like, do I go or does Gio go?
Yeah.
And then, right, because that's to me, that's the, and hey, good teams are going to adjust because they're adjusting for that middle lane drive, right? So they're saying, okay, the offside winger's got that middle lane drive. So when the puck enters wide, they're just trying to make rules that somehow make sense. But it's tough because, like you saw in the first clip, if as soon as the puck's kicked out the one side, now it's the forward's responsibility off the far side. Same as the backtrack by Benny. And again, it's changed. When Bob, it was the dot right or the bottom of the circle. There was kind of the line in which you decided whether you track back or whether you hand off. And I think it's a little bit different. It might be a little bit lower. It might be the dots now, like the neutral zone face-off dots. But again, like you can see Sam, he's like, do I go, do I not go? Because he's thinking, okay, I'm going to pressure on this, but if I can't get there, then I'm going to the far other side of the ice. And, Matthews takes it to another level and understands, hey, I'm just going to pull up behind, kind of old school, if you will, because for a while it was triangle, right? There wasn't a middle lane drive. And then there was everything like, we've done it till nauseum, middle lane drive, middle lane drive, middle lane drive, middle lane drive. And now the better teams and one of the best players in the world understands that, okay, that D is backed right off. I'm just going to take this ice right behind. And now you enable you to maintain possession going in the zone. So they go, Wally, like I will say, they'll till nauseum on those details in the dressing room, to the point where it's like, we got like, and Jeff Ward will say it, he goes, there's no 100%ers, because there will be literally players that will come in and be like, well, I was told to backtrack on the guy. And he's like, well, like there has to be a read. And so, yeah, it's not, hey, but trust me, they're scratching their head right now, especially after losing 2 in a row to Toronto. They're freaking out, I can promise you.
Yeah, and I think those are all terrific points, Dom. Like really, it all comes down to one of Morris's C words, communication. And like you said, really good to point out, Nesterov was trying to communicate there and Backlund didn't pick it up. But every situation, I totally agree with Wally, with you. Every situation is going to be a little different. As coaches, we provide a framework. And hey, guys, you got to read and react, you know, and the freedom, the onus for me coaching the defense would be to put the onus on the defense to communicate who do you want that forward to take, just like Nesterov is trying to do there. So good on him. And bad on Backlund if he doesn't pick that up. And Backlund can say, well, I'm supposed to go to the strong side. Say, hey, if the D communicates with you, that overrides everything. Everything's read and react, and the communication is the biggest thing in those situations.
Yeah. The thing that I found interesting, just reflecting on the Nesterov thing, like at times, like there's crowd noise and there's things that are going on and you're not able to hear the player. There's no crowd noise, right? They've got a little bit in the background, but like you can hear a pin drop in those rings. And so, you know, so that's just a question of, you know, Backlund just not reading the situation, right? Like that's, and communicating like to exactly what you guys are saying, to be able to adjust to what your teammates are. Like your teammates, they can see the whole play. You're backtracking. That's part of the reason why they've, you know, have that middle lane guy taken by the D, because that was a conversation too, is that it's tough for, like, let's just say, for instance, you say, okay, Backlund's going to pick up that middle lane drive and the D takes, it's like, okay, I got the wide guy, you got him. That's hard. That is so difficult for that back checking forward to try to get body position, because he can basically shield himself and it's just a hard pass to a tip right in front, that guy driving through. So that's why they've, in my opinion, that's why they've had that D take that middle lane drive. But hey, it's not easy. That's why they're getting paid the big bucks, yeah? So they can figure this out.
I got a point here. I don't know if Bobby Joe's still on, but Kim is. And I go back to the female game and where it's at. And Dom, you were coaching your daughter's team and sort of let them figure things out here. And there's a figuring out degree where the players get it and will get it if you let them figure it out. So my question is, Kim, how far away is the female game from this level of thinking without the puck? Are they?
I think we're further ahead than you think. I actually think this is easier on the female side because you can set rules.
Good.
You can say, I think, like, and I'm speaking about my level. Again, I haven't coached maybe as much on the older levels, but I don't think we're ahead in terms of dictating from the defensive side, right? So Belfry talks about this in the book, right? You're either reacting to the game or you're manipulating the game. And you can do that on both the offensive and the defensive side of the puck. I would argue in the women's game, we're not manipulating anything. We're just reading and reacting, right? We're not trying to control it, right? So if we're not there yet and we're just on the pure read and react side, I found, like, if we go by the more principled side of it, so that play would be a good example, right? Like, my players would know, you know, it's coming from the goalie to the D to the back checker, because the goalie can see everything, the Ds can see everything. I think I would have a much easier time coaching that clip than trying to coach a clip on the offensive side of the puck, you know, that has got McDavid turning 3 times up the wall with power steps and driving in. That, I think we're very far away from that on the offensive creative side. I think if it's just defensive read and react, I'm not saying that's the direction we should be going. We obviously should be going to the defensive, manipulate what the offense is trying to do side, but I don't think we're there yet. So, but if you're putting them on a relative scope, the offensive and the defensive side play, I wouldn't say we're ahead, but we're slightly better in terms of the defensive read and react than we are on the offensive read and react. But I think we need to get to the manipulating on both, and we're not even close to either of those. But for my level, coaching the defensive side at the junior level, like, is much easier. And I would even argue at the levels beneath, like, I coached midget and junior the last couple of years. And when I coach the defensive side on the midgets, my midgets usually aren't as, like, talented as the juniors. We win a lot of games because of our defensive side of the puck. And at the midget level, the bantam level below in girls hockey, it's not taught at all, or not taught very well. So if you do it at all, you're way ahead of the curve and you win a lot of hockey games because of good forechecking and good back checking and good habits. And again, not necessarily manipulating the game, but just those, those basic habits and those basic principles in communication. So again, I can't speak on the national team level or, the pro level for the women, but at my level, getting the buy-in on the defensive side of the puck isn't hard.
Dom, I got a question here. Getting back to the clip, the last clip, Bennett, more so because it seems to be like Tim, it seems a little more obvious to me. The guy could have played, the defenseman could have kept the guy on the outside and he could have stayed with the guy in the middle. I mean, that's us as coaches. But at that level, I'm more concerned with the players' inability to filter that information and make those decisions and learn from them so that they don't repeat the same mistake. Feeling bad about pointing out those mistakes, which was what Daryl gets into. It's sort of like the MP situation and working with her on a specific skill and she can't do it. So I just think the ability to communicate as a coaching staff with the players, that's where the problem is, because if they're communicating that much on this play and not getting any results, the problem is communication.
So on this clip here, Wally, like Dom pointed out, like right here, you can see Bennett looking right at Nesterov. He's looking for a communication, I think, right here. If I put myself in Bennett's shoes, he's looking for communication because I think Bennett might be thinking it's way easier for me just to stay with Matthews, but our general rule is pressure back on the puck side, and that's where like pressure all the way back. I think he's looking for communication here, which he doesn't get. I just had a thought, Dom, as we're looking at these clips, and I mentioned I think it was the third Toronto goal in the second game. Nesterov, I don't know what the hell he was thinking in the neutral zone. Like, I really like Valimaki, and I've liked Nesterov on a lot of levels, but they seem to be a real problem area for you guys. You might want to change your deep pairings. Into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you go through a little bit, you can even see Sam. He was even pointing a little bit here as the play kind of goes on, and then he's, and hey, like,
yeah,
I would
maybe,
yeah, and I can promise you, like, because it like the previous play with Backlund had something to do with this play in these players' minds, right? Like, because they all saw it and they maybe even watched it, right? Like they all watched it and they all saw, oh yeah, Whiteside guy, and they're like, okay, we got to commit earlier, and and again, I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure that was probably what's going through his mind, and so he's like, okay, I'm just gonna go. I got this guy. I'm gonna go pressure puck, and then the other two will sort out.
Yeah, and our in terms of working with the Danish women, and this is the way I've always operated. With my thinking on as a defenseman, really, is like our general rule for this back checker is if you can catch the puck and get your stick on the puck by the blue line, defensive blue line, have at it. But if you can't eliminate that puck carrier by the offensive blue line and have your stick on him, then leave the first two players for the D and look for a trailer. And so it's a different rule. Like I don't mean you maybe know, like generally what we got from the stuff with the practice video a couple of years ago was if you're tracking back in the middle of the ice, like both Backlund and Bennett, your first thought is to track back on the puck all the way back, put pressure on the puck carrier. And so I just have a different rule. And now whether we execute all the time is another thing. And that's part of what's going on here. It's a read and react game and it happens fast, but you have to allow the players to read and react. You must demand that they communicate, but it does start from what your sort of general starting point is. Like what's the back checker's job? Like this is a clear 3-on-3. The other one was more like a 3-on-2.5, I call it, where Backlund was trailing just a little bit. So they're a little different but very, very similar situations.
Yeah, and again, like a lot of, and again, the teams are adjusting because I remember when, probably now 4 years now, 4 or 5 years, that they really started to have, like if there was a 3-on-2 rush against, the D were super aggressive and surfing across to be able to like eliminate that entry because they found that they were allowing entry into the zone, and they would, pretty much it was the responsibility of the forward to be able to get back to the weak side guy. So, again, the teams have gotten better at being able to adjust that and be able to keep it in the middle for as long as they can before kicking it out. When you watched a couple of years ago, I think the rule at that point, it was because it was taken from one of the previous coaches' teams, was that like you're on, and when you're on them, you take them all the way down to the hash, right? And then we want the D close to the net as possible, and then typically, then that player ends up playing low. But yeah, it's ultimately whatever system, and you guys have just touched on this quite a bit, is it ultimately depends on the read that you make. And I think sometimes players forget to make reads, or not forget, but they're so worried about like trying to make it black and white as opposed to just playing the game, right? Because I can appreciate the amount of detail that needs to go in for the structure within, but ultimately there's the better players like distance themselves because they understand when to be able to play and when to read and when to make an adjustment on the fly, right? And again, like Valimaki's a young guy, Nestrov I believe is as well. Like they want so much to do well. I think sometimes maybe their natural instincts are clouded potentially.
I got my hand up. Kim, it's really important, Kim. I want you to put your coach's hat on. You're the head coach of that team in that situation, and you've heard all of this conversation. How would you address it? It looks like it could be it seems to be a smoldering problem. The ability of the players to play versus and think and make flexible decisions in different situations. And that's what we're talking about here. You're the head coach. What would you do?
There's going to be a woman coaching in the NHL? Sign me up.
Sort of like me going into the room with the NHL coaches being a women's assistant coach. I think there's a degree of how you communicate in terms of emotional intelligence, knowing what the X's and O's are. Mm-hmm. I'd have somebody like you on the staff and speak your mind. What do you think? You're the head coach. How would you address this?
I mean, we've talked a bit about the Socratic method. I don't think anything here is brain surgery, but I do think there might need to be clarification on, like, I would call them the ABCs. Like, what are our ABCs on the back check? What are we reacting to, but what are we trying to achieve? Like, what would be an A+ in this situation? The A+, like Tim said, would be to catch him before the blue line, and they never even get in our zone, right? So I would just, I think the players know this stuff. If the staff has probably communicated it, but maybe there's been some conflicting information, right? Like I find that sometimes, when I'm fortunate to have coaches who have a bit more experience, but maybe don't know my curriculum as well, or don't understand the vocabulary we use, sometimes they say things to players in a certain way, a slightly different terminology, or they use different examples. And then that tends to be where at least with the girls, like their disagreements or their miscommunication occurs, right? It might take a little while to pull that out, but I would just, like, to me, again, this is not terribly complicated. Just, I don't even know if you need to show the clips. You probably would. And then just say, okay, like, what are we trying to do here? What are ABCs on back check? What do we want to get out of it? Where are we trying to put this puck? And then everyone's accountable, but everyone's in the room. everyone's offering information. You could do it in smaller groups if you thought it was that big of an issue. But I think when you leave it to the players and they give you the answers as opposed to us dictating the answers, then, you know, they kind of go, oh, we figured it out, yay us, versus getting yelled at for not picking up the right person or what the hell are you doing here? Again, I don't know how communication goes at the NHL level, but to me, this would be like 5 minutes maximum to fix. Show the clips, couple small groups, or, you know, you could even do forwards, do like look at it, Ds and goalies look at it separately, see if there's a disconnect there. I think this is like a 10-minute fix. That's my take on it, but I don't know.
I don't think they'd spend much more time. I mean, Dom, correct us if we're wrong, but I don't think they would spend much more time than that on a situation like this. But, you know, as we always say, that the game is read and react, and the players do have to figure it out. But situations repeat in the game, like this one. Clearly, this happened like twice in the same game. And so by discussing them and what are we trying to accomplish, and like Kim says, having an ABC, by discussing them, you enhance the understanding of the situation and what needs to happen next time. I would be surprised if both Bennett and Nesterov aren't going to learn from this situation. Like, shit, we should have communicated better there, and it would, and we could have shut this down right probably at the circle tops, and they would have had to chip it down low, and then, you know, it's game on at that point instead of giving the Leafs possession entry. So I think that's the process, and I would be a bit remiss if I didn't go back to the start of this. Like, what a freaking great pass by Bogosian here, going back on the breakout. Like, great shoulder check for his partner, a little misdirection for Backlund, like, I'm going to go to my partner. Instead, he stops up, and what a great freaking little breakout pass, which you see all the time, a little slip pass. You see it all the time, the NHL now. Tavares did this probably 15 times in the 2 games against the Flames there, like right down low, right in the bottom of the circle, a 6-8 foot pass, and they're out of the zone. Clearly a real point of emphasis for Toronto, but it's a great pass.
Tim, you said shoulder check. Belfry in his book, he breaks down the idea of retrievals, and Bogosian shoulder check both ways. And Belfry talks about the details of that and reading the play behind you, which he did. And those details that he is talking about with those players, they're engaged in the conversations and they're appreciating them. And I think it's those kind of details that maybe the players don't get coached in them that way. They get reminded of them in a negative way when things break down, but nobody points out the positives of a clip like you just pointed out.
And right on that point, Wally, I'll try to find it here. I think it was the first goal that it was probably that Simmons goal. I can't find the long clip.
Yeah, before you do that, Dominic, I told Bogosian.
I don't have it. I just want to make this point before you move on, because Jake Muzzin did exactly the same thing on. It's not like it's surprising, but exactly the same thing on Toronto's first goal. He went back for the puck, same spot as Bogosian, looked this way, looked that way, knew the soft rim was the play, made the rim, and they were away to the races. But sorry, right on that shoulder check point.
Yeah, Dominic, my point on breakout, a tight turn to the wall gets you there every time. That's a perfect example. I don't even think he faked. He just looked. And Backlund bit. So your breakout is, that's the initiation of that fundamental skill, working on the tight turns, let alone evasive tight turns, off a shoulder check, thinking ahead to that specific tactical skill. That's your breakout. Everybody else will time and support and be in position. But if you don't have that skill to turn both ways, turn both ways, now the thinking process of reading the space behind you to know where you could fake or know what's available when you come out and be ready. That's what teaching's all about. And he's a teacher. Belfry's a teacher in the nuances of all those little details. And to a degree I've never seen before. So that's just the point I wanted to make on there. Kim, thanks for coming on. I'd really be, to me, it's how do you approach it as a group of coaches and how is it affecting them as a group of players in terms of getting buy-in, appreciation, so that there's better decisions being made. Right now, there appears to be a communication problem at every level.
Well, I think it's an opportunity to lead too. I was thinking of, and I don't know, I haven't watched a Flames game. I don't know who's a rookie in this clip, who's a 10th year player, right? I find when, even on our team, we've got, players who've been coached by me for 4 or 5 years and players who it's their first month. And, it would make sense that there would be differing levels of understanding of this. I'm thinking back, we touch on back check pretty regularly, but let's say someone's sick, hurt, missing on the day you teach the fundamentals of whatever this is, however you call it, we would call it we would start with a catch, no catch drill, with that initial back pressure. But I always think we can't assume that they heard everything or they understood that terminology or whatever, right? So, odds are you I don't know how many guys are on an NHL roster, 25. There you do this in the room and there's probably 3 guys who are like, oh man, I didn't even know that. They didn't even, you know what I mean? So you're filling holes without lecturing anybody. I don't know. I'm just always trying to repeat things because, as much as I want everyone at every practice, there are other things at the minor hockey level that sometimes, get in the way for us. So, yeah.
Vince Lombardi's number 1 rule of coaching is repetition, repetition, repetition.
Yeah.
He did okay.
Well, Tim, I love that clip because I was watching the World Juniors and the U.S. must have broken out that way through the dot lines, that little, punch pass 9 times out of 10. And that's not in women's hockey at all. I do not see that breakout ever in the female game. I don't see that option used a lot. I was going to teach it to my team this year. Didn't really get the chance for that. But, all of you who coach with me, a lot of us coach women's hockey. I mean, the amount of crap that just gets thrown up the wall for a turnover, especially, at the minor hockey or the minor levels of women's hockey, a lot of teams are still running a 2-1-2 forecheck with a crash down the wall. So what the heck are we doing throwing it up the wall? That little, my players would call it a cute pass, the cute pass to the dot. It could actually be, somewhat revolutionary in the women's game in terms of, getting speed up the ice. Because, again, I don't know what's happening at the Team Canada level or Team USA, but it's certainly not in the minor hockey levels of women's hockey yet, from what I've seen.
And on this point too, Kim, I mentioned before, are you a member of the coaches site?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to, if you haven't, have you seen Reed Cashman's adding, I think it's called Adding Deception to the D's game? It's a really good, actually, I'm thinking it actually might be a Hockey USA video. And I have it, it's like an hour, he has an hour-long presentation and he goes through a handful of drills he used with the D in Hershey and then in Washington. And this is one of them, going back, using the stick wave, using the look off, turning your feet one way and then turning your feet this way, then go this way, using all that deception to initiate the breakout. It's really, really good. Did anyone notice did anyone notice on this goal that we were talking, this Bennett back check goal, like that is the D in the rush. That's Morgan Riley in the rush. So you look right here, Bogosian is looking across at his partner Riley, Morgan Riley, right there behind the net. And Riley's the guy that's right in the rush and initiates the goal. And, talk about jumping to the offensive side. There's so much in this one clip. And Kim, I'll send it to you if you want, and anybody else if they want it. I can share it. But there's so much. I've got it marked as a teaching clip because I was going to use it maybe with the Danes next week and just ask them what they see in this and what they can learn from it.
Well, sorry, Tim, I'll check out Reed's stuff. He's a Dartmouth guy now. So
Yep.
I can
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
work that magic. So
I feel badly for him, but he's had a good career anyway. So.
some of us turned out okay, all right?
Yeah.
Some of us turned out okay. But yeah, no, it's funny because I teach all those skills, but that, I think with girls hockey, they're so conditioned to just throw it up the wall. I fight with our coaches all the time about it. The lack of they don't even want their players to wheel it out. Like, to me, that if you could wheel it end to end, if you were legitimately the fastest player coming up the ice, there was no option to headman. Like, I don't even see that enough in girls hockey. I'm not saying it's a primary option, but to have the feet and the skills to be able to execute that, would be. And again, I watch in the World Juniors, the number of times those Ds had direct pressure from the forechecker and they just hit that turn and turned up ice and skated away. That doesn't happen in the female game. It should, but it doesn't. We just make some little here you go pass and advance it to someone else. So yeah, good thing I'm getting out of coaching a team this year, so I can't teach anyone this. I'm just kidding. Teach it to everybody.
Now you can be an expert. Tell them what to do, what they're not doing.
I'll charge $1,000 an hour. I could work in the Toronto market. Toronto market.
I was just texting, chatting. I'll send that clip to everybody after. I gotta stop screen sharing here.
Dom, I don't know if this is where this whole inquiry method and engaging the players so they don't get frustrated within themselves and turn you coaches off or teachers off. Like Belfry might have got turned off MP in the female camp. They worked with them, but this is why we do it. Like that clip, Tim, I want you to send it because you never win or lose. You either win or learn, and this is a perfect example. The Flames are, oh yeah, you can push the panic button and start to spend too much time on things versus, hey, what a great clip at that level to be a better coach and earn the players' respect and let them think about it, feel comfortable thinking about them, what they're doing and what they need to do. They need to do that. They need to get better. And that's what Belfry does in the skill side. You don't want to plateau as a player. You want to be open to getting better. You're uncomfortable with what you're doing on the back check and sorting things out. And it's causing some grief. And you can either turn that into a positive and perform like the Leafs have been in those clips, the minute details, Tim, of their execution. I'm wondering if this performance is a product of the overall picture of how they're being coached now. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't say. We just can't underestimate the importance of how we coach and communicate. And these clips are great examples. What do you learn from it? How do you take it to another level? And it's all about communication on and off the ice.
I'm not sure that Daryl that puts really any focus on the defensive side of things I think mainly because that's more of a coaching staff area, like we're talking about. We would have ABCs in terms of what you want to do in the back check, what do you want to do in the D zone, what do you want to do for checking wise. Daryl focuses on the individual skill side of the game and does a damn good job of it, because that's an area that there's a little bit more freedom in terms of helping the players get better and not infringing on the coaching, the staff, the regular coaching staff's philosophy or organization or whatever thing you want to put on it. I know his whole focus really is how to get better offensively, how to create space for yourself, how to create opportunities, and all that. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I think Tom had his hand up before me. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh,
Yeah, I see so many drills, that practicing the back pressure. And then at what point, this is just a detail, at what point does the D hand off the player going down the boards to the forward and then slide to the middle and take the middle guy? What would you think the ideal point is? Did you follow me?
Yeah, I already. You mean on the attack, Tom? Like in these clips?
Well, they're on the attack and you're back checking, so you're chasing the guy right from your zone, and now you've got to stick on him, or the forward is able to stay with him. When is the ideal time for the forward just to stay with him and the D slip into the middle and take that middle guy? Or, what's the drop off point? I've heard the red line, the blue line, all the way down to the hash mark.
FIO, Tom.
No, you can't leave it that way, Wally. I don't think.
Oh,
You gotta have a starting point.
My point is they have to figure it out. They're on the ice.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, though. I know they have to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm saying, what's the guideline of the coaches right here? Like,
It's-
Dominic, what would you say?
It's Kim's ABC. Like, what's your A, what's your B, what's your C, and figure it out. But go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've been under coaches that it's been from the bottom of the circle to actually from the red right between the blue and different spots between. I think it's, as being somewhere, if you can't get him by this point, then there's, the D. So personally, as a player, I think it's like, if I'm coming back hard, if I can't catch him, if I can't get him but for sure by the red, so I guess just inside the red, then I'm like, I'm looking for communication. But I'm putting my head down and I am sprinting as quick as I can until that point, and then at that point, and probably even before. But I think that for me, that's the area where then I'm like, okay, now someone's got to take control, whether it's, communication between the D, that now the D's seeing the play coming to them. Maybe they're engaged in the puck and, are focusing on the player with the puck and stick on puck. And so they can't dictate everybody else, but the offside winger or the offside D at that point, I would say he's the captain of the ship at that point, to be able to be like, okay, take that guy I got here, or whatever, right? But I think it's on both sides. It goes both ways too. Like, we have this issue with our players. They don't talk. The younger guys do not talk. They will come back and then they'll just look at each other and they'll be like, well, I thought, well, how about you communicate? I got this guy, you take that guy, and then be able to, like, as you say. But I think, to answer your question, Tom, and I know it's long-winded, but I'd give a point early, like the red, and then at that point, you guys determine communication between the three guys or the two guys or however many guys are on there, who's got what.
Yeah, thanks. Because I've been observing practices for so long, and I've seen the various coaches, like you said. Some guys say this, some guys say that, and that's what I wanted to hear your opinion about.
I don't think, it is exactly that. There's no right way, wrong way. It's a coaching philosophy decision. Like Tom, you might remember, like Dahmer and U of A, they were always big, track the puck all the way back, like all the way back. And I felt that's great because it always leaves a trailer or somebody open. So that was their philosophy and the way they did it. And it sounds like, Bill Peters was kind of the same. Like if you're on in the middle or the puck side of the ice, then you track that puck all the way back. And for me, I'm different, as I explained. Like if you're like number one rule is feet moving. Number two rule is all the way back to the blue line minimum, because we want 5 players in the picture at that blue line. And then if you can't catch that puck carrier by the blue line, now you look for a trailer. And the big piece of that, it's like we're saying, it's communication, but those are the guidelines. That's the starting point. And then when you look at clips like this, you can say, okay, what went wrong here? Like, what are our guidelines? What's missing in this piece? And in the one piece, it was good communication, no reception of the communication by Backlund. In the other one, it was no communication or not clear communication. And again, I put the onus on the D to say, if I'm sitting back looking at the play, hey, Dom, take that guy there, just the way Nesterov did in that first clip. It's up to the D to communicate. And that doesn't mean that the forward can't dictate at some point, like, forget, I'm bagged, I'm just going to take this trailer way over here. Like it is read and react, it is figure it out, but you have to have, I think it's helpful to have an organizational structure to start from and then learn from there and figure it out from there.
I would think that because now the middle drive, everybody's middle driving, that you got to make that decision pretty early because you're never going to catch the guy if you don't decide till the blue line, because he's blowing to that net really hard. Where the trailer before, you could pick up the trailer he was pulling up.
And that's why I think, sorry, Wally, go ahead.
Dom, that clip you showed, Tim, like right from Bogosian breaking out, going to the other end. And Dom, I'm thinking we've been talking about learning from video learning. Now, the American League guys aren't playing games yet. And there you see great things by one team, and they can point them out as a group in pods. And then what would you do? Do we need to do better by the defensive team? What a learning clip. That clip in pods with those athletes with no pressure of having won or lost, to get them to realize the thinking that has to go on. That's huge to me. That's a learning clip. And it's something at that level I would use. I don't know that I would use it with the national women because there's so many nuances and details that we're getting into. It might be overloading for them to the point where they say, oh, I don't want to do that. But
Wally, what if you let them dictate the conversation, just like you're saying?
Yeah.
Just show them the clip. What are we learning from this?
And that's what I'm saying. And Dom, you've done that at the end of the season. The players mentioned how much they appreciated just breaking down the video with themselves, amongst themselves. And I'm looking at how important it is to do that clip, not about the X's and O's and what you should do, what you shouldn't do, but the ability to respectfully communicate with one another and appreciate how much they know and are learning as they talk about it. And coming away from it, more empowered. So that's what I'm getting out of this whole process here. It's a great clip. I don't know, Kim, would you use that clip with your junior team? Turn your speaker on, kid. Speaker's still off.
Got it. Yeah, of course I would use that. Although I was just trying to find you guys a clip because I've been using video. So I'm doing all these online sessions, and sometimes I have a couple U11 teams, Many of the players are sort of new to rep hockey, all the way up to bantam midget. So I show video in all my Zoom workouts, even if it's just something simple. So I was doing a shooting in stride one yesterday, and I've been pulling clips from the NWHL games because we should show our female hockey players, high-level female hockey. So I think you were talking about Daryl trying to show MP walking off the wall. So I'll share here. This is Boquist from the Toronto Six, Ontario kid, Thunder Bay. Let me see if I can find it. She walks off the wall. I wouldn't say she keeps her feet moving the whole way, but I use this as a teaching clip. So I was doing a session with, can you guys see that?
Yep.
So this is a 4-on-3, so she'll be on the far side.
Eastwood back for Woods.
Oh no, that's not the one I want. Oh yeah, it is.
Play across.
Is this
And
it?
Emma Woods couldn't bring that one in.
A little heavy on that touch.
Oh, you know what? It's going to be later on this clip.
What a goal!
Okay, sorry. Here we go.
Oh, they tried to keep that moving. It was Eastwood.
So she
Clement
walks
just
off the
about
wall.
expired all the way through the
Feet
slot.
moving.
It's still there and it put in.
So she stops her feet at one point, right? We can all see that.
Hockey here for Toronto.
But I was teaching the kids shooting with your feet moving.
Oh, they tried to keep
So
that
now I
moving.
can
It
show the
was
girls.
Eastwood.
She skates, skate, skate, skate. Now she
Just about
surfs
expired
there,
all the way through the slot.
but then she
It's
keeps
still
her
there
foot
and it
moving
put in.
and goes after the rebound. So to me, like that's the perfect teaching clip for, and so I showed it. Sorry, I have to turn off the screen share. I showed that with, that would have been the U11 team. So we did shooting in stride. I was talking, you got to keep your feet moving, be deceptive. And I was like, what did she do? Oh, she kept her feet moving off the wall. And then because she kept her feet moving, she could go after the rebound. Like these are U11 kids. The majority of them weren't even playing rep the year before, right? So it's just a quick clip. We spent 2 minutes on it, right? But it married what I was doing with the off-ice training. So I've been trying to pull out little clips like this. And of course, to marry it with the off-ice training, it has to be offensive because we're working on stick skills in our dry line sessions. But it was really well received. And I had another one where Grant Mentis catches it in the slot. It's the cross body catch on your forehand. She catches on one foot and rips it without stick handling it. And again, these U11 kids were able to say, oh, she shot it quickly. I said, okay, well, what made her shoot it quickly? And then one of them's like, oh, she didn't stick handle it before she shot. Now I just thought, like, these kids get it. It's similar to Al's, maybe that U8 in the boys is similar to U11 in the girls in terms of how much hockey they've watched. But I don't know. Like I said, I just infusing those little bits has been really valuable. That all the parents love it, the players love it. The more hockey IQ pieces I throw into the sessions, it gets a really big buy-in. So, if you're showing it to the girls, show girls hockey. Like I love watching. I show a lot of Austin Matthews and Ovechkin, but the girls aren't quite there yet on that. Those
Kim,
Kim,
I'd like to say I'm just going to
do
send
that.
you. I'm just going to send you.
Go ahead, Tom.
I have a YouTube thing, and we've been talking. I've just posted 3 national women's teams drills. So anyways, I have 280 of them here, and I'll send you the link to the YouTube. It's all women, either the national team or midget teams or that kind of stuff. So
Thank you.
there might be some stuff there you want to do with your girls.
Kim, thank you. I'm going to edit at the 120 mark of our Sharks meeting, just what you said about video learning and the fact Al's kids learned and were able to deceptively make passes breaking out and on retrievals, and the kids got it. And now getting players to learn at an NHL level from video is huge. And they'll share so much amongst themselves. I'd love to be a coach in the room and hear what their thoughts are. But that's excellent job, Kim, on those details. And doing that with U11s, it'll reinforce these kids growing up, how they're coached, what they can achieve and think and do is something we have to really appreciate a lot more than we have. So thank you, Kim.
No problem.
So I've got about 3 or 4 clips just like this from one game. Like there were 3 goals scored in the Toronto Calgary game, just like you're talking about, Kim receiving it. And this is Lucic, so he's not a high skill guy. He's got a good skill coach, Dom Pittis, I think his name is. But receive it, pivot, shoot it. There are 3 goals in the same game on the weekend, exactly like that. You know, one was Matthews, of course, Lucic, and then there's a great clip of Lindholm. You know, Lindholm does it as well as anybody on the power play. He didn't score, but it was a great scoring chance. And it's one of the skills where I think we're going to focus on with the Danish girls that are at our next camp. I'm going to try to get Peter to focus on anyway, because it's a simple skill, but it takes just a little bit of practice, and then you start thinking and just do it in the game.
I can show you. I'll show you. I found the one of this is a great catch. Like I trying to explain it to the U11 kids, and I don't think they realize just how challenging this catch was by Grant Mentis. So let me see if I can. Sorry, I've been screen sharing all the clips. Can you guys? Here it is. So it's off a forecheck here. So she'll be in the slot on the goal. So like the heel to heel, the soft catch, no handle. Let me see it. I think they only show it the once on the recap. We'll go again.
Yeah.
Like this, if I could get a better angle, I couldn't find one. But just that open hip catch, no handle, like and that's I think it's Levier in the net. Like it's not a pylon in there, but to me, this, you know, that they were able to pick that up, the no handle, like there's so many other pieces there that, you know, if you were talking to the national team players, you might be able to get a little bit more specific about the opening the hips and the hip turn and all of that. But just even for those younger kids to recognize, to me, the lack of handle coming off that east-west pass is what is the main driver of that goal. So like I said, the NWHL, it's pretty, I don't know if anyone's watched any of it. It's pretty good feed. The commentators are decent. They know women's hockey. Like there's been some good hockey, some good goals scored. You know, there's definitely some haves and have-nots, as there's always been in that league. But you know, generally, you watch them on this Twitch thing, which I think is meant for people much younger than us. And I think last night, one of the games had almost 10,000 people watching online. Yeah, it's positive for the women's game. Trust me, I'd rather see a lot more, you know, like national team players in those games. But I think I'm trying to hype it up and get more people interested in it, because it's the best we have that we can see right now. And, you know, not that I don't want to watch, you know, Mr. Matthews and the Leafies, but I think we have to support the game and watch these women do their thing.
Dom, I just want you to think of your team, your girls back in Stockton, and what Kim's talked about in the visual learning. How does that play into the growth of their game and the work you're doing in Stockton with that age group that you're working at and younger?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say our girls aren't probably at that. I mean, there are a couple girls that are at that level. Like I think, you know, I think that St. Mary's team, that like the 16U team, like I think that like they would be more apt to, you know, some of the nuances of the detail. Like I was doing some like jam turns, like on an entry, coming down like the left side wall. If you're a right-handed shot, just giving the impression that you're driving wide and like a jam step to turn. So I have done some of that stuff, but those are with like there's, you know, some of the higher end girls, but it's, you know, for the majority of them, I'll try to have them just to differentiate where the open ice is and not necessarily the skill to be able to do, like I won't get as specific to that. So, you know, instead of saying, okay, do a jam step, you know, to enable yourself to get to the middle, I'll say, okay, I want to see some type of deception. Like how can we be deceptive to be able to make them think that we're going wide, as opposed to, right? And then like looking for certain cues, like are the D's feet, and again, it's hard because it happens so quickly, but if they commit to have if you can get the sense that they've committed and their toes are turned, again, I won't maybe go into that detail, but we'll just play games where, okay, you're coming down, or scenarios where, okay, you're coming down, they've started at the same spot on the half boards, and one of them will one will have to go from the inside to the outside on the goal line and come up, and the other one will have to go inside, outside, and so it ends up being a one-on-one, and I'll tell the defenseman that they can't skate backwards. So now it forces the D to kind of, and again, I've done it right from younger. I think the youngest I've done it is 12. And, it takes them a couple times doing the drill, but just to get them to understand, okay, can you cut to the middle, or can you go wide, or why aren't you unable to go wide, or why aren't you unable to go to the middle? Why did they have such an easy time of like kind of hurting you off to the side, right? So it might be a little bit too complicated for them, but they're starting to get that.
And then I guess to answer your question about the NWHL, Kim, we all make our choices, but I personally want the NWHL to fail so we can get on with the NHL supporting women's hockey. So choice. And as I was thinking about saying that, I also thought, well, if the PHPA on our side of the border would get on board with supporting the National Women's League, then the NHL could also get involved. So I guess I got to be a bit more careful about, it's been my stance that Danny and the NWHL are holding back women's hockey by continuing to operate. And so I don't want to support them.
And I agree with all the sentiments you're saying. And I've sort of felt a bit torn. I've talked to Sammy about this, like we helped found the CW years ago. And, I was very involved for a very long time at this level, at this professional level. And as a player, but also sort of more on the management side of it. And I guess now I just, and I was texting all the girls and Lisa and all the people I know in the Six. And I just thought, like, I'm just a super fan. Like, I just want to see high level female sport recognized and celebrated. So I understand that puts me in I don't want to put myself in either camp, but I also think with what I do and maybe, some of my visibility that I have, I do think there's a power to saying, hey, there's some awesome female role models out here that, especially with, COVID, you're not necessarily having access to. And quite frankly, the majority of my audience is sort of that 10 to 15-year-old girls. They're not interested in the politics of, kind of what we're aware of. So I think if they, and a bunch of them, I'd see them on Monday, I'd see them again on Wednesday. They're like, oh, we watched that game last night. And I think, I'm thinking more the see it, be it side of it. My junior team and I watched the Six play last night as a team. And I had all 17 players for the first period. I think I posted it. And I said after the first period, hey, I know you guys have exams and stuff. If you want to go, like, I'm not offended. I'm going to stay. So the second period, I think I had about 9 kids, and I had 7 of them stayed the whole game and watched it with me. And, we were talking about different things as it went on. But again, I'm not trying to say it's the way to go. I agree with you. I think, obviously the NHL support would be useful. But, Hockey Canada is not broadcasting the red and white games. If they were, I would send people over there. But in the absence of anything else, and the only other option is NHL, which again is a great option, I'd rather my players watch women executing at that level and learning from that. But, if I had the choice, I don't have the choice right now. There's only one voice being heard. So that's the one I'm listening to for now.
That was the other thing that occurred to me the other day when I saw the highlights is, NBC are broadcasting those games. They're an NHL partner. If the NHL is really interested in helping that league or wanting that league to die, why are they allowing or not pressuring their NBC partner to and maybe they don't have that sway, obviously, because they don't have much sway with NBC. But it's unfortunate, the whole shape of elite women's hockey, and I just wish they could get together and move on. Like, why can't they just merge the two leagues? Have a division, the NWHL. Danny can have her thing. Have a division in Canada and make it one league and move on. Like, there's a bit too much obstinacy on going on.
Yeah, well, I had a good laugh, and some of you will remember what Winnie Brote's still playing. She's a year older than me. She's playing for the Minnesota team. I thought that was great. And Brooke, I can't remember Brooke's last name. It's a hyphenated last name. But she played for Minnesota way back in the day as well. She would be the same age as me. So I was telling my players this last night. They're like, hey, maybe you should make a comeback. And I thought, I can still score as long as I don't go offside. Right? Like I could be okay. You just get me to the hash mark somehow. I have to be like Ovi. I'll forecheck, no back check. I got to score or else I'm not worth my salt there. But I thought that, again, I do think women's hockey has these interesting stories. The idea of, the women coming back from having a kid and coming back and playing. I think those are really powerful role modeling stories that, most of the players I coach are never going to play at that level. But to know they can have a kid and be back 6 months later playing at the highest level in the world, I think those are powerful messages. So, yeah, I don't know what the right answer is, but this is the only answer that's on the table for us right now.
Thanks for bringing that up, Tim. That was on my mind all along, the politics of supporting female hockey to the point where they can be affordably paid like the women's NBA. I think that's what they're sort of hoping for, so that those players, I believe, can do it for a living versus my senior days having to teach full time and play, but get played minusculely. And women don't have that option to play for a living, which is really, really huge. I like what you're doing, Kim. Keep up the good work. It's exceptional. You're doing that with U11 kids, and Al's doing it with U7 and 8 boys in Massachusetts, and just underestimating the capacity of them to learn. And that's really huge. Good work. Al, you got any thoughts? I thought of you on that Bogosian breakout and how a tight turn works and how fundamental you are in teaching those four edges mastery skills and playing with and without the puck. And that begins when they start skating. And some players, even at the NHL level, still haven't mastered those edges to that degree. And as Daryl alludes to, they've improved their skating with specific work. Better late than never, anyway. But what's on your mind, big guy?
Are you talking to me, Wally?
Yeah.
I didn't know which Al. Yeah, like for instance, what I was thinking during that discussion, and I came in a little late, but there's so much need to teach good habits young, and I spend hours on shoulder checking. If I throw a puck in and have the defenseman go back and they don't double shoulder check, then we bring it back and I ask them what happened there, and they don't go full speed. I ask them what happened there, and then they finally end up, well, I shoulder check to see where the pressure is and where my support is, and I go back full speed to create time and space, and they have that. I just overload the brain with it when they're really young, so they don't have to worry about when they get old. And anytime they go to a puck, they shoulder check in any situation. And if it isn't taught early, it's hard to, there's so much to learn on top of that. If the basics aren't down, it's hard to add to them. And the same thing as throwing the puck up the boards. That's all it's taught through Hockey Canada clinics, is in our province anyway, is throw the puck up the boards blindly. And so I teach them to make a decision and a sensible decision. If that passes there and there's no pressure, fine. But they have to look for the middle and all that, those kinds of things. So they have to learn to think really young. And uh, actually, I love what you guys are doing. And Kim, and Dome, you guys are so knowledgeable. And there's so much. I wish I was a student under you and could keep learning. And Timmy, you bring sensibility, and Tom, you bring variety, and it's such an exciting presentation that's made every week here. It's just a privilege to be part of it.
Al, you made me think of a drill I started doing a couple of years ago with the junior girls, and just when they're going back to get a puck. So I put a puck in the corner, I bring them in at the blue line, and I just tell one of the players, "Hey, can you go get the puck and bring it back to me? Just go get it and bring it back." She's like, "Yeah, sure." So she, skates over, brings it back, do whatever. And then I take a $50 bill out of my pocket. I say, "I'll give you $50 if you go get another puck out of the corner and get back to me within 6 seconds." And she goes gangbusters. And of course, they never make it back in time. I'm not losing any money. And then I said to them, "Why didn't you get me the first puck like that?" Because until I said there was $50 on the line, you just sauntered over there, brought me the puck back. And so it does, just make sure you figure out how long it actually takes to skate from wherever you are to there, because you don't want to lose your money. But it does, I forget where I think I got that from a Hockey Canada thing or a book or something, but it was a really good way to get the message across and anchor it into something about how hard we should be going to recover pucks, especially with the D. But I usually do it with the whole team, and it has a pretty good effect to the players. They seem to enjoy it. So
It's called urgency.
I find when I ask the 7, 8 year olds to get up and teach it, then they have to think on their feet, and so they have to have something to think about, and they go back into their memory and bring it out, and it really reinforces the brain development of all those skills, and so it's a tough process, like teaching properly at the grade 7 or the 7, 8 year old level and up in minor hockey. However, it's where the money is. It's where the growth starts, and once that growth starts, you can keep adding, and you'll still have to correct or ask them what they could have done, better, or what else they could have done. And so it's important that early start. And I just, there's so much to know about teaching and learning, and how young people learn now compared to what they did 10 years ago, because it's a whole different audience than it was 10 years ago, because they're so much brighter and so much more capable of learning.
So much of the game at the highest levels, especially, but it does translate down low, is like we've talked about, is the deception piece that doesn't really get talked a lot about at lower levels. But like, yes, Wally, the tight turn on the breakout is a really effective tool, but it's not nearly as effective if you don't have the deception piece, the little stick wave, the look at your partner, like I'm going over there and then go the other way. The deception is the big thing that I think is missing at the lower levels. We don't talk about it enough at all. Like we're preparing to show the Danish girls a bunch of clips and just ask them, hey, like I think I showed the one last week, like why does this goal happen? And it's quite simply as the passer is looking that way and then passes over there. Like it's the deception. And even to move a stick when you're on the power play at the half wall, you want to pass to the slot. Well, look down low at the goal line, then pass it over there. Or look at the slot and pass it to the goal line. Like that's a big piece that's really missing in the women's game, and I think generally missing at lower levels.
Tim, you mentioned a video or a package that someone developed on deception. Could you send me a little note on that so I can know where to get it?
I will. It's Reed Castro's. It might be on YouTube. I think it is, but I'll check into that. It's a Reed Cashman. It's an hour-long presentation on adding deception to the defenseman's game, but I'll take a look for it. And
It was, yeah. Now, Brad Richards, when he was really young, would look to the left and pass to the right as a, 8, 9, 10-year-old, and it was an exception for him. And I didn't teach it then, but he had that down, and that's probably one of his good traits. He had great vision and was able to pass the puck really well.
yeah,
It's interesting. I've been teaching this a lot in the Yellow Garage when we do stick handling. So I use this clip. I don't need to show it to you. You all know this clip, like the back of your hand. But I use Mr. McDavid here. And we just talk about like giving false information. So even though it's, 8-year-olds, right? Like the amount of false information McDavid's giving there when there's not even another Oiler within a, province of him. And the fact Riley crosses over, blah, blah, blah. But so we just talk about how McDavid uses his stick, his feet, his eyes to give false information, right? But that's not the deke. That's just the setup. There's the fake. That's the actual move. And then I don't teach them the last part because they're not there yet, nor are most people. But that's like that. I mean, maybe Mr. McKinnon, but so we actually teach. So I'll have them off the ice in the Yellow Garage, and we go, okay, just do the stick part of the fake, right? The first part, just your stick, not even your weight shift. And then we add the weight shift, and then we add the eyes on the fake. So again, that would be like, again, most of them are looking at that clip going, like, I can't do that. But they're seeing all the false information that McDavid's giving. And then they understand, okay, give the false information, fake that way, and then go do something else. And again, like I'm doing that with 10-year-olds, and it's off the ice. Like it actually, because I can imagine trying to do it on the ice, how much noise there is, right? And also, if they don't have the skating yet to be able to execute, that cutback, to your point earlier, Dom, right? Like most of them aren't going to be able to do that little, even what McDavid just did there, that little cutback on Riley. But on dry land, everyone can load and explode, like on their feet, So it's interesting to see. Like I wish I could take all this stuff we've done in the garage and immediately see the benefit of how it would translate over onto the ice, because they do get it. And then when I revisit it, it's okay. What are the 3 parts? What are the 3 things that you use to give false information? They go stick, legs, eyes, right? And they can see McDavid doing it. And then they understand, I have to fake out of that and set up moves. Anyways, I just, I have this kind of cool opportunity to teach this way. I just wish I had the opportunity to see them go do it on the ice and how well it translates over, which unfortunately we're going to have to wait more months for. But like I say, if the little ones get it, the older ones will get it, and we'll see if it makes them play any better, dangle anyone better.
I got an ad on there, Kim, but go ahead, Wally.
Just on your point, I had this talk with Belfry 3 years ago, and that was from working with Tom, discovering the midget girls weren't handling a puck. They were just trying to slap pass. They couldn't no dust pass because they hadn't learned to feel it, handle it, and pass it. And I've always said and debated with Ryan, you've got to teach handling the puck to feel it, to spin it, to pass it, and then go into the no dust. So you can just catch and release a pass, let alone catch and release a shot. So my thinking on that, in terms of what's the right time, and he was working with his daughter and teaching shooting without handling, and I'm thinking of where Tom Malloy's midget AA girls were, and we were just at the stage where they were midget age, had not been taught to properly handle a puck and feel it, let alone do those other things. And so we did that. And my question was, Kim, how soon do you do no dust passing, no dust shooting, and lookaways is what we're talking about. So my conversation with Daryl was he had his girl doing no dust shooting from the get-go. And after our conversation, I he agreed that fundamentally with real beginners, you've got to do those fundamental things correctly before progressing to the next. And all of us may do those fundamental things correctly, but average coaches, community coaches, teaching those fundamental techniques aren't in the coach certification package.
And I teach, I would say I have like 8, I call them like my foundational practices. And the underhandling / shooting in stride is one foundational practice. I know we've talked before about you don't always underhandle, but I kind of like what Daryl talks about in that book. In an hour, I can take them from having no idea what underhandling is to being able to come off the half wall and shoot with their feet moving without ever stick handling on both their forehand and their backhand side, right? So I take them through like a skating progression of that, where they're going around cones in the neutral zone and then into some shooting drills and then some shooting drills with pressure. So irrespective of what level I'm with, it is, I would say, one of the first 3 practices that I do of the 8 that I do. And part of it is also, it tells me a lot about the students, right? Because you can see who can disassociate their upper and their lower body and get their hands around their body, and who can shoot with their head up, who has to stick handle before they shoot. So it also is it's a good fact finding practice as well, because it gives me like an idea of the baseline. But I taught my son, who's not even really into hockey, how to hold his stick out like this, and he skates around like this everywhere. He won't do this, and he doesn't play hockey. He just knows. I told him to skate around like this, and he's underhandling. He underhandle shoots. He, whatever. So yeah, like I wouldn't say I'm at Daryl's level quite, but I do have it as a foundational concept. And then I would have another practice that's very, like more dribbling the puck and quicker hands. That we talked about it before. You don't want the girls to think that's all they ever do, but 99% of the girls I watch stick handle right before they shoot. And the goalie says, thank you, because they know when they're going to shoot. So I found in my experience in watching minor hockey with the females that underhandling has a very positive impact on their game right away after only teaching it to them once. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get that impact immediately.
I was going to add, Kim, like when you were talking about McDavid's deception there with the stick and everything, if you want to see some great examples of the stick deception, stick fake, watch, I'm sure Wally sent it to you, that Datsuk 4-minute video that he just sent out yesterday. There's some freaking fantastic clips there, probably 8 or 10 or 12 of them, where the stick fake to the backhand is so good that world-class goalies are down and out and sideways. So good.
That's another one of my foundational practices we do, coming off the wall. So I just have them skate and do the fake into the wall, even without a puck, and then they pick up a puck, and then you get into a bunch of offensive, or you go into forward D split out of it. But I think a lot of us are coaching in female hockey. I always joke, they don't need a middle of the ice in girls hockey, because the puck just gets sucked to the outside. So the more we can do to get them to be productive coming off the wall makes them more of a threat.
Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, and I see the benefit from both of Wally's point about having the touch, and Kim's point about underhandling. I think and you said most girls come in and they handle it once before shooting. I think for me, it's the ability to be able to do both, and to be able to, so you're just not as predictable as to what you're going to do. Obviously, if the puck's coming in, I want to get it away quick, because there's certain instances. But I think with the goaltender, I think sometimes, like, you do have the ability to make your decision based on the information that you're getting in. I get it. A lot of times you're right in front, puck comes in, it's got to be underhandled. But I think to differentiate between the difference between when are you in a zone to underhandle, and when are you in a zone that it would be beneficial to maybe have a little hesitation or have a hitch, right?
Mhm.
There's,
But I also think, Dom, like, and again, how many girls aren't even taught how to handle in primary position or how to dribble in primary position with their hands out, right?
Sure.
So to me, like, again, that underhandling practice at least even gets them in that proper posture. They're so used to dribbling in front of them in position one and having the puck follow their body like they're walking the dog, right? And then you can't score it all anyways, right? So I agree with you completely. Like the hitch and the little extra around the world and all the little cute fakes you can do, they're worth their weight in gold in the female game. But I also think the nice thing about underhandling is I find that to be a productive use of ice time, whereas a lot of the quick hands dribbling stuff, I find is much more powerful to teach in my yellow garage, right? And they can get tons of reps there. Like there's certain skills, if I'm going to teach quick release shooting, there's part of me that goes, man, I'm just wasting a lot of ice right now. Our $400 ice in Toronto with kids like around the wall, like it's valuable, but you can understand what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
You get a bit flow. You sort of feel like you're maximizing the ice and the cost of the ice out there. But I don't know how many girls are out dribbling in the garage, though. That's what I'm trying to do right now, I guess, with my sessions. But
I guess and again I'm just basing this just based off my own girls. Like, so we had gone out we'd gone out to an outdoor rink on a lake in Tahoe, and the ice was like horrible, like it was like horrendous. And at first they were so rattled because nobody could handle the puck, and it was bouncing all over the place, and there's big divots and everything else. And eventually they ended up having a good time out there or whatever. And but the comment at first was, well, we can't even play, the ice is so bad. And I'm like, no, this is all right. We played for a couple hours. A couple days later, we had an ice time on normal ice, and the level in which the kids' hands be able to handle the puck and be able to make plays, I was just blown away. And again, I'm not saying it's a direct result of just the one time, but I think the touch and the ability to be able to have that first touch, like, again, I'm not discounting or downplaying the benefit of being shot ready, and like that's not, I'm not debating that. But I think for as far as that tactile, that freaking be able to feel it and to be able to, I think there's a benefit there. And whether it's, playing games with a tennis ball on the ice or whatever it is, but I think that there's, especially on the girl side, because there's such not inability, but just they just lack. I mean, just be honest, they just lack the ability to be able to be manipulative with the puck, right?
Yep. No, I agree. You know what I do actually? It's interesting. I came up upon trying to introduce the other idea of underhandling, and what I do is I start the practice with them playing wrong-handed scrimmage. So they have to play the wrong way. We play half ice, full ice, depending on the age. And, I make them play a wrong-handed scrimmage. And then I start to introduce, into segue into underhandling. I say, okay, how did you guys feel playing that way? They said, oh, I kept losing the puck. I said, oh, was it easier just to push the puck and keep it than to try and stick handle it? Yeah, it was easier just to push the puck and not try to stick handle it, because I don't stick handle that way. So it kind of gives me a fun sort of segue into the concept of underhandling, because they understand that, okay, like sometimes stick handling, it's a little harder. And then we always do a wrong-handed shootout, which they love. So you let the goalie shoot, and depending on the level, you can let the goalie shoot normal. Like a couple of my goalies can rip it bar down, so I make them shoot backwards. But, and then you put a player in the net, and the players just, no one can really raise it when they have to shoot the wrong way. So now you got players playing goalie, and other players trying to dangle, and they fall over and they trip themselves and they spear themselves with their stick. And it doesn't matter. I do it with the junior players. I do it with the 8-year-olds. Like it's it's a win all around. But you could wrong-handed scrimmage with the whole team on the ice because no one can make a pass anyways. But there's always one girl who's really good the wrong way, and you're thinking maybe you should have shot the other way. Maybe we missed an opportunity. Maybe you should have been a righty. But no, it's just a fun way to mix it up. And like I said, I throw it into that underhandling just to give them that contrast of, obviously their hands are better in their normal handle side. But anyways, like I said, it's a fun one for me, and it does, it communicates the concept well, and it does, from the feedback I get from the coaches, it does translate quite well into their gameplay, which is, as a skills instructor, I also want to, and Daryl alludes to it in the book, right? I want the kids I work with to go back to their team and people are like, oh, what's that thing you just did, right? Not a wow factor, just nothing fancy. But
so Kim, you just observationally, scientifically proved Wally's point, because this is something we stumbled on the other day, and by that I mean the wrong-handed scrimmage, and oh yeah, it's easier for us to just push the puck. It was something that sort of struck me, I think, Wally, you remember, about 3 years ago, when I'm watching all these kids. I've never been on the ice with these little wee kids who are just getting introduced to hockey. They all push the puck naturally because that's all they can do. And they all sort of no-dust it naturally because they can't stick handle. And that's sort of Wally's point exactly. We have to first teach them how to stick handle, how to feel a puck, how to load a pass to make an effective pass before you teach them to underhandle or no dust it. And so for me, Wally's original question was, at what age do you introduce the underhandling or the no dust? For me, it's not an age, it's a competency. Right. When you can see a relatively competent puck handler and a relatively competent sweep, load the pass and passer, now you're ready to introduce the concept of, you don't always have to go like this before you pass it. Try to just get it, load it, and pass it. So that was Wally's original question, at what age do we teach it? And I'm not sure it's an age, it's more a skill level competency. And I certainly would agree with Dom that, we all know you need to know, you need to be able to do both. You need to be able to have deception and have quick hands and toe drag it. That's a good add-on skill, but you also have to have that skill to catch it, snap it, catch a pass, make a pass without stick handling. They're both skills that you really need to develop. I mean, so it's the competency that is the biggest thing. If you don't have a player that can stick handle and or load a pass to make a good pass, then that needs to be your focus, not the no dust and underhandling stuff. That's where they need to go first. So thanks for that.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't, a lot of I'm going to have to switch sort of where this is all great learning for me, because I, for the most part, I've been working with competitive players. So they are playing competitive hockey. So whether they're truly that skilled or competent, as you said, they probably have done some degree of skill development, or they have a basic understanding of dribbling and handling the puck. But also, now I'm tasked with developing sort of more that learn to play, more introductory level, which is, of course, where my daughters are. So I have more of a vested interest in that in terms of making it good. But yeah, like I said, it's really, and again, Daryl hits in it in his book, and I think it's, as a skills instructor, to be able to take a concept from 0 to 10 in one session and kind of leave it. And like you said, maybe the next session you're going to work on quick hands instead of the underhandle. I've found, especially when working with coaches, because the coaches are on the ice with me while I'm teaching as a skills instructor, and then I hand them the practice plan. So here's what we just did, practice 3, underhandling. And then they can take that exact practice plan or pull from it. But the power is the language we've taught them and the concepts we've taught them in that. So for me, it's also important to create practices where I know I'm not going to be the person repeating this practice. It's going to be someone else who hasn't got the experience that I have. So how can I, again, because I think a lot of minor hockey coaches I'm going to do this drill and this drill, and it doesn't have that flow to it. It doesn't have, kind of a starting point and a crescendo, and whether that ends in a small area game or not. But when they try to teach skill, team play would be something different. But when they tend to teach skill, it's very piecemeal. Oh, I want to do a shooting drill. I want to do this drill, and it doesn't have that flow. So I think for me, and in my role, is trying to create those curriculums that someone could use in a team environment and bring the team along. And even if they didn't revisit it for a month, hopefully that concept remains. And like I said, it was cool when reading Daryl's book, like how much he talked about that, about, he has his clients come and, he's not saying to them, well, in 8 weeks, you're going to be a better player. He's saying, the next time you go on the ice, you're going to be a better player because of the hour you spent with me today. It's a direct quote. Like I'm sure Wally, circled it or underlined it, because to me that is exactly what we're trying to do as skills coaches. Is there's a curriculum for sure, a long-term thing, but if you can go out and have an immediate impact in that player's game the following time they hit the ice, then I personally think you're doing a great job. And even if it's something as a deception, right? That fake with your stick, and she pulls it out in her next game, and the forechecker eats the boards. It's going to make you stand out. It's going to have an impact. So that's the way I'm approaching things now, is how do I take that hour and a half and really get those kids to have a performance effect as a result.
Hey, Kim, note to self, crescendo is not a word a hockey coach should use.
Is it a word an Ivy Leaguer should use? Come on, Tim.
Ivy Leaguer, yes. And Dom, I was thinking when you're telling your pond hockey story there, where the kids were saying we can't even play because we can't stick handle. Great opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Let's play some botchko, where we're all focused on. It's a great skill to learn how to carry the puck without stick handling. Let's all play that way and focus on that. Don't even worry about stick handling. It's a great skill to add to your game. Change of focus, have fun, way you go. It would be a good opportunity for that.
Yeah. We went out there, and there was a bunch of there's about 3 different groups out there, and they brought nets, and they had goalies with full gear, and it's a huge lake. And so they had like 5 pucks, and I'm watching, I go, how many pucks do you guys have? And they go, oh, we only need 5. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they started to play the first shot that went all the way down to the other side of the lake. And so I was like, you guys must be California kids. It must be like your second time on an outdoor rink. So
Yeah.
I just took pylons, and I'm like, okay, you guys can take the nets. I'm just going to be pylons, and you've got to press it up against it, because I was playing too. I wasn't about to lose my front row, somebody freaking deflecting a puck up in the.
Good conditioning session, chasing all those pucks.
Yeah. I didn't need.
It's fun now though. Like for me, I'm out on our rink's small out back, and it's usually me and my husband and the 3 kids, and I'm just making up games, but it's cool to see how much transfer it has to the 4-year-old and the 6-year-old, right? Like we're playing hand soccer, we're playing soccer on the ice with no stick, or they love this one I made up. You call it different things, but I call it grenades, and just whatever stuff I have, I just shoot it at their feet, and they have to get out of the way, and they love it. And they love it. And it's a small rink, so the pucks and the cones and the rings and whatever I'm shooting at them are just pinging all over the place. But to watch my 4-year-old daughter, like, I'm relatively new to this kid thing, but I watch her from like, we play grenades on Monday, we play grenades on Tuesday, and I'm like, oh my God, she's already a better skater. I'm a great coach. No, I didn't say that, but of course they don't want to like do because I'm mom, like, and I'm a coach, right? So as soon as I go to coach mode and be like, oh, let's do crossovers, they're like, they don't want.
Guys, I got a work call. I got to go. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Hey, Dom. Yeah. No
Okay.
problem.
But
It's
it's
kinda
pretty.
funny. It's funny, like Dom was mentioning, steering the puck onto the pylon so they could avoid skating with it. My experience over at our rink across the street, where I'm the main maintenance guy, which is a lot of fun. I played a bunch of games, 4 or 5 games with the, 10, 12-year-old, 8, 10, 12-year-old guys and girls. And we've got the little pond hockey nets with the openings on the, and they're very much in the mode of when they get a little breakaway or something, they go in and they steer the thing and they jam it right into the hole in the board. And I'm like, okay, I'm bringing out my big fat magic marker, and I'm drawing an 8-foot circle around that net. And I'm like, no more jamming the puck in. You got to try to shoot it or pass it into that hole. So we're working on our passing, shooting skills, and so I'm trying to get them into that mode, like to actually add a little skill development to their fun games out there, where they just get better. It's kind of funny. Tough to convince them at first, but
yeah, no, they love it. It's funny because my middle one, the 4-year-old, is like, she just watches everybody else. So my son does figure skating, and my husband watches his lessons, so he can like teach him some of the stuff or review. And then my daughter will just be on the other side of the rink and she just does it. She just looks at them and then does the same thing. And I'm like, okay. And, even like we'll scrimmage. It's like me against everybody, and I'll make a pass behind my back. And then the next time she goes, she like makes a pass behind. She better be a hockey player. I tell you, there's something there. I have hope.
Got a visual learner there. You better keep that in mind.
Yeah, she's very, my son's very much more like needs, to see it, but explain to him. But she's just, anything I do, she's just running with it. She's very physically aware and gifted, spatially aware. Her spatial awareness is like through the roof. It's pretty cool to see.
Or the video on. Go ahead, Wally.
Yeah, Al Ramsey's video, I've been thinking about it all the time you're talking, where the fact he showed the Datsuk clips to his players, he asked them questions about it, and the next ice time, that's what they did on the ice. So you really don't need to practice a lot of that stuff. They see it and they get it. And so we can accelerate the learning process of tactical execution. It just takes less time when they can see and do. And, at the other end of the spectrum, at the NHL level, I just think maximizing the visual learning and the way Darryl Belfry studies video and analytics of the players in terms of what happens in each zone of the ice and working on the skills in those areas relative to game situations and identifying what's going to make the biggest difference for them in terms of improving their performance. That's what's brilliant about his book. I'm just listening to Dom today and Tim break down those video clips. The way they did was just mind-boggling to me. And all I'm saying is, NHL coaches, how can they be better at doing and using video so that they get more out of it emotionally and technically and tactically with the team. And right now, the visual learning piece is huge. We learning how to use it. And I remember the session, Tim, you were on the ice with the kids and you had them roll their wrists, and I close up the video of grip of the stick and rolling the wrists. And thank you for bringing up that point of my concern for teaching the fundamentals first. And that's the point I wanted to bring up with Al. He does those things, and you got to do it all in game situations. So another great session.
I got to run. So
yeah, I got to run. I got another call too.
Tom Beloy, anything else to add? Are you going to share anything today? A one driver?
Well, I just sent you the link to all those female. Kim may be even practicing in some of them, because some of them I've been doing this a long time. So I interesting to hear I know, how I coach. I make up little games all the time.
Yeah.
And I start with some kind of a drill to teach the concept, or maybe even the game to teach the concept. But at least 60% of my practice is little games. So kind of goes on what Kim was saying there with her little kids.
Yeah. Tom, Daryl Belfry talks about the concept of using games to teach, and he downplays that in terms of the significance of the little sub skills that go into the situations in the games. It's an interesting part of his read because I totally appreciate the application of thinking and executing by playing games and having fun and figuring it out when you just play. But boy, I'd sure like to know the balance of what he does with 3 tiers of NHL players trying to make it.
I disagree with him on that one.
Well, no, I'm just saying
just
you have to
do.
read. You have to read.
No, I know. He's a skills coach and he's into what he does, but I can't agree with that. It's just like I learned subject, predicate, noun, verb, all these kind of things forever, and we didn't write very much. And I think that's where he is in his teaching. And if you don't apply it to games, it's a moot point.
Well, I agree.
I think he's great on older guys.
Tom, I'm saying you. It's one thing to make a statement like that without reading the book. It's another thing to make a statement like that after reading the book. That's my point. Is he's caused me to think differently about what I've done all my life, and there are some different things to consider, and that's just being a shark.
I agree with Tom in that he is an individual skills coach. That's what he does. And then he talks through his NHL guys in terms of the application of it. Like, you can do this here, you can do that there. When you're in this situation, use that skill. But he's an individual skills guy, and that's what his focus is. Yeah. But I totally agree with Tom that, especially when you're not getting extensive one-on-one coaching, you need to be put in situations and be able to think yourself, hey, I can use that skill in this situation. I don't think there's any wiggle room that using the games, small area games, to enhance your hockey sense and your skill development is huge. But it's just not Daryl's focus, because all those guys, almost all of them, have great hockey sense. They don't need that piece. They need the little tricks of how to, the terminology he uses a lot is manipulate the defender. The defender is trying to manipulate you. You got to be able to manipulate back by deception, by quick skills and everything else. So that's his focus. And that's undoubtedly why he I think that's sort of why he downplays the game side, because that's not his focus. It's like everything. It's in the middle. Like, I totally agree with Tom. I don't totally disagree with Daryl. Like, he's an individual skills coach, and that's not.
Are you reading the book?
I haven't got it, so.
Yeah,
I'll read it later, but I just.
That's my point. Is I understand what you're saying, and coaches, average coaches, who can't teach, are wise to just play games. And he's taken the importance of subtle teaching points that I've never thought of at the highest level. I think the playing of small area games is absolutely brilliant and is going to achieve more results for average coaches than trying to coach and trying to teach and trying to tell and yell. And my point is that I'm learning from what I've read about Daryl, and I've sort of pigeonholed him as a skills coach.
And he is.
Well, I see him now as a skills coach that can teach a very elite coach to be a better coach by appreciating those kind of details, not only more so in how he engages the players to learn them. There's two sides of the emotional of the intelligence of what he's doing versus the technical and tactical of what he's doing. So,
Right.
Can I go off Daryl Belfry for a little while
Mhm.
and just share a thought that I've been had is maybe because the deception part of hockey, maybe it would behoove us to read some magic books. Like how the magicians cause you to look somewhere else so that they can do their trick and you don't even see them doing it. And maybe that kind of how they do that to what do you call can't remember what the word is, but
distract,
Hmm?
distract.
Yeah, distract.
distract or they
Misdirect.
get you focused on something and then they do something, all of a sudden they pull a rabbit out or something like this. Maybe that would be an art that we could incorporate into our coaching to get the players to,
Yeah.
Like McDavid does on that thing. He totally sells
Yeah.
that he's going to pass, and then he pulls that great move.
Well, like Al Ramsey said, trick the D or trick the checker. The trick. You sucked them in. You made them believe it, and that deception piece is, it's so huge, and they can do it sooner than later. Like listening to Kim talk about it, fast they pick up on things. I think we can do so much more younger. We haven't figured out how to get it across. Tim, how concerned I am about fundamental skills along with Al, but then applying those skills and thinking and being deceptive in using them to advantage at 7 and 8 years old. I just can't imagine where the game's going to be when those kids are playing in the NHL. It's really impressive how the game's progressing. So
Daryl's, I think one of the reasons Daryl is so good and sort of taking it to another level because he's an individual offensive coach, but he doesn't just teach the physical skills. He teaches the thinking part
right.
about
Yeah.
manipulating the defender and setting the defender up to get him to think you're going to do this. And this is what we're talking about, deception. Manipulate the defender and then use some physical skills to get away from the defender or take advantage of the defender. But that's kind of the beauty of what he does. He marries the two things. But I was still, you'll never convince me till the day I die that an important piece of that for everybody except that very elite level would be, as Tom says, teaching them those things, but then setting up games where they can actually experiment with the deployment of those skills and that thinking. Like that's the important piece. Like Crosby, you could just tell him, in this situation, you could do this in this game. And then he and Kane and guys like that, they can just go out and do it. But most players will have to sort of practice it in to feel confident enough to try it in a game. So that's where the small area games comes in, I think, for the vast majority of players. And having said that, I'll contradict myself by saying when this short story, and Tom, I don't think you were with me still at U of C, but a couple of years I got Thomas to come out and do some of his skills for a half hour before practice, twice a month. And we didn't really have a small game application after that. But one of the things we practiced was coming down your off wing, faking a slapper, pushing the puck to the middle, and snapping a shot on the net. And, pretty basic, sort of a basic advanced individual tactic. But one of our least skilled players, I don't need to use his name, but one of our least skilled players kind of got the hang of this with Thomas at practice. And damn, if I'm standing on the bench at Father Bauer, he comes right down the ice in front of the bench, across the blue line, fake slapper, push to the middle, snaps one on net for a real good scoring chance. So really nothing is universally true. We didn't have a small game application, but he picked it up just from the the rote skill practice in practice. But anyway, that was a bit of a diatribe. Sorry.
Oh, I'm not, Tom. I totally agree with you in small area games. I learned my lesson my first year coaching when I was over teaching and deliberate drills. And I had to go to Ken Bracco because he just played games and pat him on the back. And when he told me that story in November when I was in fourth place, that was a wake-up call for me. And I totally appreciate the importance of the skills. And Tim, your story, I experienced it with Dave King and the national team. In the morning skate, I went with the team for a road trip to the States to play NCAA schools. And I've seen this happen a number of times. But in the morning skate, he worked on attack a pylon, fake inside, go outside, drive and shoot. We must have got 6 or 7 goals on the dry skate resulting from the fake and the imbalance that occurred that weekend in the 3 games we played. So there's the immediate payoff of a deliberate skill in a game situation from doing it. And it's all about right stuff, right amount, right time, right way. That's, whatever you choose to do or take away from this, I don't know what to, I have no need to take anything away. I'm just sharing. And so what Dom does in terms of where he goes and does, I talked to Thomas on the phone yesterday, Tim, about Daryl Belfry's book, which he's going to buy. And he told me something very interesting. You may know this, but Daryl Belfry helped him set up a preparation plan for the Czech national women's team. They've collaborated on thinking differently, and he feels it's playing a major part on the progress he's made, adapting some of the things that he's done, but he's worked very personally and closely with them, working with the female team. And all I'm saying is if anybody can take anything out of this and make use of it to suit their needs and their environment, good on them. And that's all I'm saying. It's not my way or your way or Daryl Belfry's way. I never appreciated him much when he was coming out because all I looked at was the fundamental skills, and nobody ever really worked with defensemen until you got there, Tim. And those fundamental skills were critical. And it's
Doug Lidster might have something to say about that.
Well, Doug did a good job too, but even from the fundamental point of view, Tim, I came out with your UFC team and knowing you were going to work with the national team, they were going to go to Europe and play on big ice and join the national team, 2 or 3 of them. And the sub skill, fundamental skill, was just transition skating, going forward, suddenly going backwards and striding. And we worked on that a little bit. Just the agility, change of direction, the fundamentals of how to transition from skating forwards to going backwards, the opposite direction. And the kid, I spoke to the player that came back after that, and he thanked me for that specific skill because I learned that lesson when I went to my first Spengler Cup with George Kingston and Andy Murray. And George did the first drill was sort of a double regroup attack drill on big ice that a lot of players had never been on. And they couldn't do the drill. The gaps were just totally lost. So I asked George for 10 minutes on transition skating so they could set a gap better. And they did the drill really well. And that was the first time I'd been there, that the success of that specific little skill, the deliberate repetition of it, then doing everything they wanted to do. you know, it's nice to say, well, gee, they did win the gold medal, but if they had been frustrated and tried to do drills on big European ice and they couldn't skate the game on European ice, then they wouldn't have had that success that they needed to feel. And feel is a huge word of Daryl's teaching. It's how they feel it. They see it, they do it, and they feel it. And that's a big part of what he teaches.
Anyway, probably a good. I got to jump off because I got another call in a few minutes, guys. So another great session. Hopefully, I think Rick must have been snoozing through the whole thing. Rick, just like the quiet church mouse there, but just teasing.
Just double L-ing, listening and learning.
Yeah. Or double Zing, just snoring.
You know, no Zing. Just one observation though. I mean, if the Flames put as much talk into that situation on their back checks as we did, they may actually make some progress on it. But it was all good. It was all good discussion.
Either that or we'll really confuse everybody.
Yeah. The other part I'll add, just on Backlund, when he finally recognized where he should have been, he got to Simmons. He was in range. He just didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
He just waited until it was time, and then it was too late. All he needed to do was get a little closer, be ready to lift his stick, and we're not even talking about it. So,
yeah, 3 or 4 more hard strides would have done the trick.
Yep. Learned a lot. Thank you.
You know, Rick, that detail that you mentioned, and that's sort of what the players get from working with Daryl, is an appreciation of little details I've never thought of. How they influence the game, how they create or take away space to create possession so you can execute. So the players leave that appreciation of details so that they would take to this kind of a discussion and conversation. And I've always been one of those players, Tim, I just wanted to play. The teaching side, my best coaches to me were ones that let us play and generalized and treated us well, and you had fun. But that art of getting these players to get so much better, even though they're still the best, is what is intriguing, and it's just huge. So anyway, Daryl, he's just texted me about talking to him next week. I might try to get him on a call, and really, we, pick his brains, knowing where we come from, and maybe he works with minor hockey kids. Like he's worked with Patrick Kane when he was 9 and that kind of thing. And I don't think he's just an elitist, but I don't know. But I certainly appreciate everything for having got the book, and I'm glad I'm reading it. Tom, did you skate this week outside?
Yeah, we'll be skating again tomorrow morning.
Where at?
Probably Wildwood.
Okay.
Always look and see between that and Glendale, which is the better. But Wildwood, they got good edges there, where Glendale, you take your life in your hands taking one off the boards because the rut, or the lumps, but goes flying up in the air.
Okay, here, just quickly before we go, I'll show you this other clip I found of. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is whoops. This is the other clip I was talking about on the on Toronto's first goal. Watch Muzzin right here. He shoulder checks like I think 3 times going back.
Share that with me, Tim, please.
Yeah. So right here, looking here. Double look there. Looks the other way right there. He's looking at the ringer. Okay, that's where I'm going. Little soft rim. And they're away to the races. Attack in the middle. Boom. And that's the start. That's that same Backlund. That's that same Backlund back check. I'll send you both of those it's the live shot of the Backlund, the Backlund goal. But Muzzin starts it with a great shoulder check.
Yeah.
So I got it on my list to send those out to you guys. So I will. Anyway, I got to go. See you guys.
Okay,
Hey,
real
take
quick,
care.
Take care, guys.
I got to go help bring the groceries in. So thanks very much. I've got 2 hours and 34 minutes of recorded time. I started 30 minutes late. Rick, before you go, during our conversations, like, and part of this comes from Belfry's book and looking at the pictures and reading expressions. When we were talking about captains, I saw a sort of a nod of the head, a disagreement when I named leadership, and I talked about Haley Wickenheiser and not being a captain, but being what I put her in a category with Messier. Did you have some second thoughts about that? Would you put her in that category?
I don't recall that conversation necessarily. I was shaking my head during that discussion though with any comments around Joe Thornton. That's probably what you read. I'm not convinced.
What was that? Like that when I saw that, I wanted to say, what are you thinking? So what were you thinking? Do you remember?
As I recall, I mean, Joe Thornton is a good hockey player, and his statistics will back that up. It's indisputable. But from the point of view my point of view, that he's a guy you want that's going to lead everybody else in how to win. What has he ever won? Would be my question.
Yeah.
I think he's a very focused player on himself. Has been since he was drafted.
Yeah.
And some stuff that I've followed along the way. And as I say, statistically, he's had a great career, but his teams just have not achieved anything. Boston dumped him after 5 or 6 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He had good background and good surrounding talent in San Jose, and nothing ever materialized from it. And yes, he's been on Olympic gold medal teams.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he was just a bit player in that role. I don't see him as the ultimate leader.
Yeah, good point. I never thought, that never entered my mind. What I did, that I edited that portion on the captain's class and leadership.
Mhm.
I was going to leave in Wickenheiser and Messier's into the video as being two of those elite players that are leaders in the way they are. And the ideal leader to me, who has willed teams to win, has been Messier. And I put Haley in the same category, but I ended up taking both of them out of the video I edited when we talked about leadership. And I've edited two of them, one more on the captain's class book, and the other one on Tim's talk about captains he appreciated over the years. And the chemistry of that leadership, Joe Thornton added to Toronto. Is he a fit of chemistry to the group to make it better? And, and I know Haley I feel he's going to be a good addition to that group. I don't know well enough, though, to judge that. We're sort of fans by how we know those people. But when Daryl talks about the influence, and I texted him about we talked about, you were on at the beginning, the back check of Matthews, the best player doing that. And part of that is, I'm wondering whether Daryl actually did anything, not related to the back check, but just his work in creating this appreciation of the details for everybody everywhere to do the right thing. So I'm just talking about the chemistry of Thornton, the chemistry of Belfry, working with the team, working with those guys privately in the off season. I'm going to be curious watching them progress this year. But when you look at the clips that Tim showed today, they're sure doing some pretty damn good things. They're paying attention to some details that, with Belfry working with the team, those are details that he writes about in his book. The shoulder checking especially is a 3 or 4 pages on it. So
Well, for
that's
me,
where,
Wally, if I might just jump in there, when you talk about details of the game, you're getting into the realm of will versus skill. It's not about knowing what to do, as in the Backlund case. It's about when you get there, you actually have to do it. Just being around the area doesn't accomplish it. You've got to actually do all of the work and do all of the details to get the result that you want most. If you shortcut anywheres, you magnify immensely the chances that you're not going to get what you want out of it.
see, from a coaching point of view, I totally understand and appreciate that. Obviously, Calgary does not pay attention to those details.
I would agree.
So if the Leafs are paying more attention to details than they are, why are they doing that? What do they need to do that? And just having this discussion is keeping an open mind about how have we done things all our life, the way we coached or are coaching. Whether Tim's working with Denmark, Tom with SAIT, Dominic with the AHL, the NHL. Like I've actually figured Dominic's the closest thing to Belfry I've seen as a skills coach in the NHL. And him reading that book, he might have a role he might be able to serve a role like Belfry in terms of affecting the thought process, the open-mindedness to get to another level, to help the cause. Because I think they've got a pretty damn good team, but there's just some glitches going on that they don't.
Well, it comes to what I said right at the start, Wally.
Yeah.
Like Rico's been going like he's a pro scout for Anaheim, right?
Yeah.
And he said, well, Edmonton's never going to win until their top 2 guys commit to some kind of defense. Because he's gone up to Edmonton. Like I think he's up there today.
Yeah.
Or going tomorrow. And they're all back. Like they're all coming back.
Yeah.
They're tracking, right, plugging up the slot, but they're all looking at the puck and people are getting wide open behind them and they're not doing anything. And it's the same thing. Calgary's coming back, but they're not, like my son said to Chuck, he showed all this emotion when Muzzin flipped the puck at him, but he didn't show any emotion during the game whatsoever.
Yeah.
So,
good point. No, it all adds up. The mystery of being a fan, and I'm really, this is what I said to Daryl when he shared with his meal. Coaches are like fans. They see the tip of the iceberg only. Your progressive, detailed approach is inspiring players to achieve their infinite potential. Inspiring curiosity with the student is what masters teachers do. It is a pleasure reading your book. It will inspire me to watch the game and think and mentor more meticulously. Appreciating the drive of the best players is essential in being able to take them to another level. So I'm looking forward to getting them on, and just how he talked about Matthews and competitiveness, and he's got McDavid in here. He said, it fires me up when I hear this about star players, because the narrative most often suggests that the player doesn't care about winning. However, the truth is they are ultra competitive. And I think every NHL player is, or you wouldn't be there. They just need time to figure out how to play their game in the NHL. I'm sure you hear the same thing about McDavid. McDavid is ultra competitive and has an extreme desire to win. When the situation comes together for him in Edmonton, he will be in more situations that show how much he wants to win. Matthews is no different. The situation here in Toronto creates opportunities right now for him to show how everyone else is noticing, for him to show how much he cares. The facts, everyone else is noticing it now, doesn't necessarily mean he hasn't been showing it all along. That's pretty good. You know, for him to take the time out and share the thoughts, it's really good to have somebody working with those guys as they're watching the games, hearing his thoughts. So
I would suggest, Wally, that if Toronto is successful to the nth degree this year, it may well be more because somebody has got Matthews' attention as opposed to Joe Thornton's being on the roster.
Yeah,
you need to have your leadership, and I fall back on that to the Oilers situation back in the '80s when they were the top team in the league, and they went into the final against New York and the Islanders, and New York handled them fairly handily, and they only realized what it took when they went by the Oilers or the Islanders dressing room after the game. You've probably heard this, and I'm sure Tom and Jordan have too.
Yeah.
Such a telling situation, and their whole that wasn't an individual turnaround in terms of thinking. It was a group think turnaround, and they just realized there that they just hadn't used all of the abilities they had. They'd only picked and choose what they did when they wanted to do it to get the result they wanted for the moment, but aggregately it wasn't going to get them to the top prize, and that's where the change occurred. I'm fully convinced of that.
Yeah. Well, that's the art of coaching, I guess. And you know, because your job as a coach is to inspire and motivate and teach. And the biggest thing with Daryl, I think he inspires curiosity. He makes them think. And old school coaching is just yelling and telling, no thinking. So that contributes to this coaches being more curious about what they're doing and how they're doing it, and players appreciating that shared curiosity and getting better, and the importance of those details that you just don't pick and choose. You do. Good point. I like the words. You pick, right now they're picking and choosing, and sometimes they're not engaged. So good point.
You don't know when your maximum skill is going to be required. You don't get to make that choice. So your only choice, from my point of view, is to give the maximum effort in all situations. And we'll go back and pick on Backlund again in that situation. He didn't read it well coming down the ice. He didn't react well, in my opinion, before the blue line. He actually looked to his right, which should have been in his peripheral to begin with. He did get down to the left corner. He was within range, but he wasn't really pushing it hard. And he chose not to do everything in that situation just to see how it turns out. And it didn't turn out well. You can't allow that to happen in any situation. And you're not going to be able to control that, but you can control the effort that goes into it. And I just don't believe that he did that in that situation. And I believe that's a problem has been with the Leafs, has been with the Flames over the last few years. They say all the right things, and they do some of them, but they don't do enough of them often enough. And I think as a coach, part of our responsibility, a key part, is to make sure your players in your group have all the tools at their disposal. The second part, and probably the more important one, is to impress on them and convince them that they have to use all of them all the time to their best ability. Then they have a chance. When they start picking and choosing what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, who they're going to do it against, you're already picking away at your opportunity. And it doesn't take very much of that to undermine it and not have it happen.
Well, you can be like the Flames and Oilers and just change coaches every year and blame the coach. So that the players never have to take responsibility.
Exactly, Tom.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask here. Well, you're the head coach. What the hell do you do? Because that's all they're both doomed to getting a new coach sooner than later if they don't get to the crux of making players more responsible, more committed. That's their challenge. And my suggestion is letting that unit of players or the whole team look at that clip, or just that unit of players watch that clip together. No coaches, just the video guy showing it over and over and talking it out. And he'll see his lack of effort. If he doesn't, maybe one of the other players will point it out. But you shouldn't need that. You know what I mean? Daryl's book, he writes about good habits, but he doesn't address bad habits. He has a way of dealing with bad habits by looking at the good. And it's very intriguing because you don't get results by saying, don't do this, don't do that, versus saying, we need to do this, we need to see that, we need to see the positive things. But that's the art of coaching. So that's my.
Here's a thought, Wally.
Yeah.
I've seen, we both played where you stayed in your wing, you picked up the guy right to the post, right?
Yeah.
As far as back checking went. And then now it's come down to, you don't pick up the far guy, you back pressure that puck carrier. And I think now before there wasn't a lot of decisions to be made, right? Now there's decisions to be made. When do you release that guy? When does the D hand him off to you?
Yeah.
And what I see a lot of times is they make the decision too late, and then that guy going to the net is too far ahead.
Yeah.
You can't get him. You might have your stick on him, but his stick, unless you got his stick tied up, you really aren't covering him.
Why did we pick up the one guy?
Back pressure causes a lot of problems.
Why did we pick up the wide guy? Why could we? Why should we? Why did we?
Because we're supposed to have paint on our pants after from being up and down your boards.
Because
it was said.
There was a red line. You could pick up.
No, but they changed that before the red line got moved out. The back pressure started.
No, when I was using the national team, coaching at the Oval, Wayne Fleming pointed out to me, I was picking up the wide guy. And I'm not sure if that was the year, 97, 98, or 2 years before that, they had put in a red line. And I didn't realize, Jesus, you got to change a back check. I didn't realize it.
I had arguments with Willie and Tim and Terry about this.
Yeah.
When I was at U of C, because we were forechecking, overloading the side with three, F1, 2, 3, right over there.
Yeah.
And they still wanted F3 to be picking up, like if I'm the left winger and I'm in the right corner, I'm on the dot. How in the world was I going to pick up the winger on the far side? It's impossible.
Yeah.
And I said, and teams changed to this later, the weak side D's got to take the weak side winger. And, so it's gone through, I've seen it go through a lot of stages from being a player and being a coach and the way everybody does it now. And I just see a lot of confusion from that back pressure.
Yeah. Well, I think that the details listening to Dominic today, I didn't think coaches would get into this kind of detail. He said
he said every coach has come up with a different way to do it.
Right.
When you release them, and what,
So
and you remember the video from Peters trying to instruct guys.
Yeah.
And they were half-assing it just before the playoffs, and that's how they went into the playoffs.
Yeah. See that's my point is the game's evolving, and as they pre-scout, they're creating these opportunities from transition where there is a back checker, and they're attacking in a way to exploit the weakness of how they're defending. It's just to another level. So right now is the time they have to have these kind of open-ended conversations with players before they have it as a coaching staff. If you're not listening to what the players see and think, they're not engaged, they won't buy in.
I agree, because as a players,
Correct.
you know how hard it is to get to this guy. I remember getting benched one game against University of Manitoba, and it was that old back checking way, right?
Yeah.
I picked up their winger right to the post, basically there was two guys covering that guy, right to the post, and then the puck bounced off the boards, got to their point man, and he got a shot. Well, I was supposed to be doing two things at once, right?
Yeah.
I took the guy to the post, took his stick, boxed him out, and they got to the point, and the guy got a shot before I could get out there again. Well, I got benched the rest of the game, and I'm thinking, I did exactly what we're supposed to do, but there's no way I could get out there.
Yeah.
And you don't do that anymore. But that was a fault in the system, and that's what Gretzky took advantage of all the time. He knew that the wide winger was taking the guy to the post, so
Yeah.
he knew that weak side D, Coffey had come up. He was wide open all the time because there was nobody picking up that D coming up the ice, and he hit Coffey forever on that delay play.
See, back in that era, and talking to Morris Lukovich past week, they're thinking ahead of coaches. He was doing things and making plays and suggestions on the ice. They did things the coach didn't even know about that are being done today.
He did that swing behind everybody and gain speed.
Yep.
And he had Thomas Steen could hit him going. I mean, he scored 65 goals one year in the World Hockey.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I don't give a shit what I know, Tim, and we're learning and we're talking and we're do this, do that, do this. I'm saying the players are going to give you more information, and you just have to sit back and listen and make suggestions that they might shoot down. And that's a good thing because they're thinking ahead of you.
Well, exactly what you said. If you're saying things that they're saying, I can't do that.
Right.
That's not going to work. They're not going to do it with any enthusiasm. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, look, I've got to run, you guys, and I want to
Just one quick ad, Wally, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I mean, we saw 2 clips of the Flames on the back check. What is their regimen? Because it was executed one way on the first one, and the second one was done differently. So maybe that's the first thing they need to address. What is the expectation?
Yeah.
What's our main process?
What's the starting point of structure?
Exactly.
And the flexibility within to figure out, and the players' ability to adapt to situations on the fly without being locked into what the coach has said. And I agree with you. That's why they have to have the conversation as a staff and team.
That's what I'm suggesting. That they don't have a straight line right now. So
if they
anyhow,
get together and talk it out, and they have the players engaged, a part of the decision making, at least the leadership group even. But then I think it's essential that I'm just throwing this at you. Who was the back checker in question? Swedish guy?
Backlund. Michael Backlund.
Backlund. If he's not part of the leadership group and not part of the discussion, then he is going to, right now it's obvious he's part of the problem because he's not playing up to his level.
Well, he is wearing a letter.
He is, but
ostensibly he's part of the leadership group.
So I'm suggesting that the communication between the team, the leaders, and decision making, there seems to be a disconnect. And I think the disconnect has to do is how we communicate and how we coach. And the old school coaching is telling them what to do and them thinking about being told so many times when probably they would just like to figure it out themselves, and they'll do it. At that level, they're capable of that. They need to be free to do that. That's my opinion anyway at that level. And Dom's right in the middle of it. That's the exciting thing about it. And, as you listen to Dom talk, Tom, I think he's getting it. He's on the cusp of appreciating this to the point where he might change his video session approach with his group. But right now, the first thing I would do with Dom is the American League guys look at that clip and have the conversation. Let the players do the talking, the seeing and the talking of that clip. The coaches will learn more from it than the players, guaranteed. And that's what we haven't done. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a shifting trend here.
I'm sure it will be. I got to get going too here.
Yeah, probably better let you go too, Wally. So,
Guys,
all next week.
You won't believe this. 2:59:47 is going to be 3 hours of
I
talk.
believe it.
All good talk. Thank you very much.